the killer's got her number.
Where's this coming from?
Sounds disgusting. Heavy shit.
8 corpses have been discovered in what is already being called the most brutal and heinous crime in local history.
Okay, you guys, show's over. Let's move it back over here, all right? Come on, you guys.
Hey, watch.
Hey, Shelly, come on out and meet your date.
Bring her to me. Would you be yourself if you look like this?
He was so grotesque. He was almost inhuman.
My imagination, or did it just get cold in here?
That's what happens when you're pregnant.
But from the minute we got here, I've been seeing things and hearing things.
How do we do it?
Well, first we take our clothes off, and then you get on top of me, or I could get on top of you.
Woo! This feels good! Wasn't this store closed a few minutes ago?
That's what happens when you're pregnant. Is this your rubber?
That's an eyeball.
The quiet can fool you. Fooled me. Then there was this cracking noise behind me. And standing there was this hideous-looking man. Hey, now cut that out right now. That's not funny!
We don't accept no food stamps.
Andy! Debbie! Shirley's dead! Oh my God! Oh my God! I'll never forget that horrible face. Never.
That's what happens when you're pregnant.
Hi, this is Larry Zerner from Friday the 13th, Part 3, and you're listening to The Hysteria Continues.
And indeed you are. Welcome back to The Hysteria Continues. And I've just turned it down a little bit. That's the fantastic disco score to the film we're covering this time, which is Friday the 13th, Part 3 in 3D, or not, as the case might be. And we've got a gargantuan, we've got a huge one for you this time. We've got a special guest, which I'll introduce in a moment. And also, we've got 2 interviews, one with Larry Zerner. Erik spoke to Larry Zerner, who played Shelley in Friday the 13th, Part 3, and that's coming up a little bit later. We've also, Joseph's going to be talking to the people behind the new Crystal Lake Memories documentary, which is about 4 hours long, I believe. 7 hours, blimey, it's even bigger. Mr. Daniel Farrens and Tommy Houston will be joining Joseph for a chat in a little while. And we're talking about that, and that's going to be very interesting. And I think this podcast is actually going to come out on Friday the 13th, the same day as the documentary does. So it's all coming together nicely, as it were. But we're also joined with a very special guest, a long-time friend of the show and a personal friend to all of us, I think, Mr. Michael J. Ferrari, a.k.a. Meep. How are you doing, Meep, joining us from New York City?
Yes, doing great. Thank you, guys. Feeling good. I'm here with you guys, and I wanted to say that I love you all, each of you.
Well, we're all off to... Oh, that's lovely, isn't it? We're all off to Higgins Haven for a little bit of skinny dipping this weekend. Mm-hmm. So what are you going to bring with you, Meep?
Well, I am definitely going to bring my favorite bright blue jumper, for sure.
Yes.
Which I'm actually wearing right now just for the occasion, along with nothing else.
It is that kind of podcast.
Yes.
Yes. Excellent.
Got to be prepared.
Yes, and Meep is going to be, because it's such a big one this time, it's going to be quite difficult to fit it all in. So we're not going to do a top 3 for all of us, but Meep is going to be doing his top 3 Friday 13th moments. So that will come up a little bit later. But Erik, what are you going to be bringing to Higgins Haven?
God damn it, Justin. I spent all day yesterday washing your black veils. Look what you're doing to them. You know I work very hard around here to keep up with you and all your gothy habits, but I get no help from you at all. That's what I'm going to be bringing.
Right. You sound like the mother you never see in what's that? The Big Bang Theory.
I'm not familiar. I'm familiar with the program, but not familiar with the character. I'm sorry.
Okay. Well,
what would I bring? Lots of donuts, but probably not from the grocery store from the start of Friday the 13th, Part 3, because the hygiene isn't the best.
No, Harold's been pouring them, and it doesn't look like he washes his hands even.
No, we'll get onto that later. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Well, thank you, Erik. Joseph, what would you bring to a weekend at Higgins Haven?
I guess I'd bring some Fango magazines, and I would be the one making love in a hammock.
Would you?
No.
No.
How do you do that? I mean, it's
First you get on top of me, or I could get on top of you.
Yeah, that's it.
Yes. Okay. And
Eric, I don't think you and I will fit in this hammock. It's very small.
I severely doubt any hammock anywhere in the world could stand my weight, to be honest.
Now, don't put yourself down.
Yeah, you don't have to disagree with me anyway, whatever you do. I mean, yeah, don't disagree, whatever you do.
I'm just thinking of donuts myself, actually, so I can't get past that part. It's a bit early. I like donuts.
Yes, it might be a bit early for donuts. But yeah, who doesn't like donuts? But last but not least, Nathan, what would you bring for a weekend with Dana and friends?
Food stamps and a rubber.
Yeah. Very good question. Very good answer. Yes, excellent. And
can you buy rubbers with food stamps? That's what I'm wondering, actually.
If they're flavored ones, you probably could.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. They have to be food related in some way, probably.
Good point. Good point. Well, we are, as I say, as you can gather from this, we are going to be covering Friday the 13th Part 3 in 3D. I think it's going to be a good show, so thanks for joining us. Before we do that, in time on a tradition, we're going to rattle through some of our recently seen, but as Michael's our very special co-host this week, Michael, do you want to tell us, have you been watching anything of note?
Cool. Well, actually, I've been watching a few things. I like movies, so I tend to watch quite a few of them. I picked up that Scream Factory Schizoid X-Ray double feature Blu-ray, and that was... I haven't gone through it all yet. I actually just stayed with the Schizoid side. It's a movie I've always liked. It's a very strange movie. I think you might have covered the director's previous film, Savage Weekend. So it's kind of along that line. It's kind of weird. Has a very late 70s, early 80s vibe to it. Has Donna Wilkes in it, which is also a very good thing. And Klaus Kinski, who I like a lot. And a few other actors that are pretty interesting. It's an interesting movie, revisiting it. It's maybe not something you'd want to watch all the time, like throw on like a Friday the 13th film or anything, but I kind of like weirdo slasher movies like that, and it's a perfect pairing with X-Ray, I think, which is also really strange. And the interview with Donna Wilkes is actually pretty good. She's pretty candid about certain things, so
does she talk about
that was a nice disc.
Excellent. I've got it. I got it through the post the other day, but I haven't opened it up yet. But does she talk about anything else? Does she talk about Blood Song or Jaws 2?
She talks briefly about Jaws 2, but nothing. I think they don't go into Blood Song at all.
That's a real kind of lost, well, not classic exactly, but it's a It's a film that could
probably is too, Nathan.
Well, yes,
I love it.
I love it too. I think it's a fun film. I'd like to cover it at some point on the and get Frankie Avalon on.
Oh, definitely.
Yes.
They also talk a little bit about Angel, which is a movie I like a lot, and she has some things to say about that and her experiences on that film. But as far as Schizoid's concerned, it's a weird movie. I definitely recommend fans of slasher movies to picking up the disc. The Killer's Disguise is pretty cool. And it's a fun movie, I think, if you like watching old ladies in hot tubs, especially. I don't know if that's your preference, but if you like watching middle-aged ladies in hot tubs, you should definitely give it a watch. I think
quite likes that.
Also, I've been watching. I don't know if you would consider this a slasher movie. I kind of do. It's Hot Fuzz from 2007.
Yeah,
I can see how you think that.
It's definitely a slasher element there with the masked killer who kind of reminded me of the killer from Scream a bit, the way he was going around in a cloak killing people. That's a really fun movie, a nice homage to slasher films while also being a homage to more modern-day action flicks. Thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, no, that's a good choice because it's definitely set up as a kind of slasher giallo kind of comedy thing, isn't it? There's definitely got that going on there, which isn't a great surprise, is it? Because Simon Pegg and Nick Frost, I think, are kind of big horror movie fans.
Yeah.
Incidentally, has anyone seen the close of the trilogy, which is it World's End?
Yeah, no, I haven't seen it. No.
No, I know it's opened in the States this week as well, didn't it? So I was curious. Anyone else? Nobody seen it?
No.
No.
I will see it when it comes out on DVD because I did like Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz, but I didn't get to see it in the cinema.
No. Okay. No, I've heard it. I've heard mixed things about it, but yeah, no, cool. Anything else, Meep?
Oh yeah, a few others. I don't know if this is another tenuous slasher pick, but I watched The Temp from 1993. Have any of you guys seen The Temp from?
Oh God, I love The Temp.
It's such a cheesy movie.
It is. It's so bad, but it's so good.
It's kind of a slasher movie. I think it was kind of fitting watching it this week as well because it was from Paramount Films and I think released in '93, so 20 years ago. And at that point, I think Paramount was definitely over the Friday the 13th series. They had sold it to New Line, and so they started making these thrillers, especially after they started becoming in vogue in the early '90s. Yuppie thrillers.
I call them the From Hell movies. If you've been on the forums forever, you know that I love the so and so from Hell, like Girlfriend, Babysitter, etc., etc.
Right. I've always referred to them as the fill in the blank From Hell movies as well. Yeah. And I think you guys would enjoy this one. It's really cheesy. The actors are kind of a hoot. You get to see Faye Dunaway and Timothy Hutton, Oscar winners, just hamming it up, pretending it's a classy movie, but actually it's a really trashy movie. And you get to see Lara Flynn Boyle with the biggest hair.
Ooh. I love big hair.
And a big hair cat fight towards the end, which I think is pretty awesome.
Big hair. God, I have to see it.
Yeah, me too.
The ending of the movie, it doesn't go as far into Slasherville as you'd like, but it kind of resolves on a note that maybe is a little bit more. It doesn't take it too far, but up until that point, I thought it was a pretty fun, trashy movie, and I think you guys should just give it a chance. And besides that, I've been watching the Friday the 13th films, just because I need any excuse to watch them, or sometimes I don't need any excuse at all. I'll just watch a Friday the 13th movie. So I ended up watching the first 6 of those, and I have to say I like all of those movies.
Excellent. Yes. Well, we're going to. I mean, as you probably know, Meep, I think Joseph's gagging, aren't you, to get on to part 5?
No, he's already watched part 5 because he sent me a message on Facebook discussing the merits of certain scenes, which I'm hoping will be in his top 3, at least one of them. Yes, we'll see, I guess.
Perhaps. We'll just wait for that. Yeah. I did watch a bona fide slasher movie besides the Friday the 13th films. I also watched, went to the theater on Friday, and I went to see You're Next.
Mm.
And I've heard mixed things, people who either love it or hate it, or kind of were so-so on it. I actually loved it, It was really fun. I didn't know what to really expect. I didn't read any reviews other than hearing these things, that there were positive or negative things. I just absolutely loved it. I thought it was a lot of fun. I thought it was the perfect homage to slasher movies if you like a good final girl. I thought it was kind of almost an exercise in trying to create a movie and how do you make the perfect final girl, and I think this movie really captures that. It's an actress, I forgot her name, but she reminded me of a mix between Jill Sholin and Rashida Jones. Does anyone know who Rashida Jones is?
No.
She was on The Office and Parks and Recreation here, and I've seen her in another movie called Celeste and Jesse Forever. And she kind of reminded me of her, and she also has a dash of Rachel Ward in her as well.
Ooh,
which
it's that accent.
But yeah, it's the accent. She's all.
That's a horrible thing to say about an actress.
She's an Aussie, but she's really good. I swear.
But saying somebody has a touch of Rachel Ward in them is not very nice.
I was the one who I liked You're Next, but I didn't like it as much as everyone else. But that final girl was just awesome. One of the best final girls ever.
Yeah, I went to see it in a theater. I usually go during the day. I'm not a nighttime theater person because I'm getting older and I'm getting crankier, I guess. But I went on sort of in the evening on Friday night, and I went to a particularly rowdy theater, a theater known for being rowdy, and oh goodness, as it started, everyone started talking throughout the movie. Everyone was kind of getting annoying. But as the movie started to kick into gear, people started cheering, They were totally with the fun of talking back to the screen. It was the perfect slasher experience. It reminded me of my days in Times Square when I would watch movies there because I lived around there, and everyone was just so excited and cheering for her when characters often did the wrong thing, which this movie really explores. There's a lot of characters who go places where they shouldn't go, but I think that's part of the fun of it. And the audience really got into it, which actually definitely helped the experience. I feel like it really amped up the pleasure. It's a fun movie, and I like that girl. I think if there's a sequel, I think it could be a nice way to explore some of her athletic abilities.
Yeah, because I got to see it at a preview last week, and I really liked it. I thought it was a lot of fun. I kind of guess. I mean, I can't speak for Joseph because I know you've got a differing opinion, Joseph. But I kind of guess that some people didn't like the way that it starts off as a. It starts off as a very much a slasher movie, then goes into kind of like almost like a black comedy, but very dry comedy, doesn't it?
Right.
And then shifts into slasher movie, but then without giving anything away, the end of the last third of the movie is a mixture of slasher movie and something else. So it's not necessarily as formulaic as perhaps some people would be expecting it to be. I kind of guess. I don't know. I mean, I really liked it. I mean, I can also see that kind of indie sensibility could annoy some people, but I thought it actually complemented it quite well, and I loved the music about halfway through with the 80s synth, which really kind of really showed exactly where they were looking. But again, the only thing I would say is which has been echoed by pretty much everyone else, is Barbara Crampton was a little bit wasted. I thought she was good in this, but she very much played against type, didn't she?
Yeah, that was one of my biggest problems with the movie. I didn't like the shaky cam either, and some of the style, but I overlooked a lot of that because I thought the movie was exciting enough. But the Barbara Crampton thing, I thought was I really enjoyed seeing her on the screen. It's been a while since I've seen her in a theatrical release, and that was really exciting. At first, I was like, well, she seems a little bit too young to maybe play the mom, but at the same time, looking her up, she actually is that age, but she looks really, really good for her age, which is nice. My problem with her character is that she's the mother of 5 children, and suddenly she becomes so spaced out, and she just can't deal with any of it. If anyone knows moms, I think with each kid you get kind of strong and kind of strong-willed. You want to protect your cubs, and I thought going the other way with it was kind of, it just didn't feel correct. It felt like a false way to go with her character. Maybe they just didn't know what to do with her, but it was just a way to squeeze her into the movie. But I thought, just having her there was nice enough, I guess, ultimately.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was good. And also, as we said last time, there's an interview with her that Nathan... Was it Nathan or Erik? I can't remember.
It was me.
Yes.
Yeah.
You spoke to her, didn't you, a couple of years ago?
Yeah.
It's a shame, actually. The film's kind of underperformed at the box office, supposedly, although it's made many times back its budget, because I think it's only budgeted about $1 million or $1.5 million. But I think if it had come out before The Purge, it might have done better.
Or if they'd released it around Halloween, maybe it might have done a little better.
I mean, it's not doing too badly, but it's obviously not the... I think it's just that the horror audiences want the kind of the creep fests of things like The Conjuring, don't they? And then I imagine Insidious Part 2 is probably going to do very well, which incidentally I think is going to be out. It's released the day this podcast goes out as well.
Friday the 13th.
Yes.
I will too.
Yeah, absolutely. So excellent. Well, thank you, Meep. Is there anything else, or is that you?
That's about it. Yeah, I've been watching other things, but those are the main slasher fun movies I've had. So
excellent. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Nathan. How about you?
I watched Among Friends, the new movie by Danielle Harris.
Okay. Yeah.
It's one of those films where, I mean, I kind of got the wrong idea before I watched it because I didn't read anything about it or anything, and I kind of thought it was going to be a slasher movie, and it's not. So I was kind of thrown off a little bit by that because, I mean, to me, it's kind of a wasted opportunity because the plot line is, you know, a group of friends gather at this large estate and they're having an 80s themed party. And they're all dressed like in like tacky 80s clothes and like crazy hair and stuff. And I'm like, that's the perfect idea for a slasher movie. It might as well be a slasher. But instead, it turns into one of those movies where everybody's like taped down to chairs around a dinner table getting tortured. And
right.
I don't know, like that's just been done so many times. And to me, I don't necessarily find movies like that fun. But it's not bad. I mean, for most of the movie, I was interested in seeing where it was going. So, I mean, and I thought some of the direction from Danielle was really good. I look forward to her directing more films. My biggest issue, like I said, is I thought it should have been a slasher movie, and it wasn't. And the ending, it just, I mean, it's one of those endings that it seems to end a reel before it should, because it just goes off and you're just kind of like, is that it? Like, there's nothing else. And it felt like there was not a satisfying conclusion. It felt like it just went off, you know, while things were still happening. So, you know, I mean, I don't know. I would probably give it maybe a 5 out of 10, just because I think it could have been so much more.
Okay, I haven't seen it, but I knew that it was out or was coming out. So it's it's a strange. I kind of guess the whole torture porn thing is just as cliched as a slasher movie, isn't it? But I think it's a bit of a strange choice to be making like a torture porn movie at this juncture, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so too.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything else?
Let's see. I watched. I showed Wes Evil Laugh last night for the first time, and he thought that their dancing scene was the scariest thing in the whole film.
He's probably right, isn't he?
He was laughing so hard during that scene. He just couldn't figure it out. He said, as an actor, I'd probably go to the director and be like, is this serious? Are you for real just wanting us to dance around a house while we're supposed to be cleaning? But anyway, I do love Evil Laugh, so I'll probably pick it at some point.
Well, I think it's funny, isn't it, when you sort of you read about Friday the 13th movies, and especially Part 3, and well, all of them really. And I think Larry Zerner says later that about how they kind of knew what they were getting into. You know, it's not Oscar-worthy material, but the Friday the 13th movies were for Paramount. But a film like Evil Laugh, you kind of just do wonder how tongue-in-cheek the actors, you know, the whole one was the riff on The Haunting when somebody's grabbing somebody's butt. Do you remember?
Yes.
It does seem like it's very, I don't know, tongue-in-cheek. Although it's kind of
well, yes.
Did you get that?
Boy. We did. Very clever.
Justin.
Well, I wouldn't put that in my mouth if I were you. Might explode.
I hope not. Matron doesn't approve of banging in the wards.
Yay!
Back for Joseph.
But,
Sorry,
I
Nathan.
mean, it's weird that, like, the comical scenes are kind of intercut with, you know, the main actress, Kim McCamey, as Connie, talking about this guy slitting babies' throats and hanging them upside down so they'll bleed out. I mean, that's kind of brutal for this movie, I guess. And then there's the classic character of Johnny, who is the worst friend in the world.
Can you remind us what he does? I haven't seen Evil Laugh
Well,
for quite a long time
I mean,
now.
for a couple of things. One, he hits on his best friend's fiance, and then she turns him down, and they have a really nice heart-to-heart talk. And then later, as he's being attacked, he's yelling at the killer to kill Connie. She's upstairs.
Oh, right. Yes, that's not a very good friend, is it?
No.
I imagine that's going to get picked at some point, isn't it, for the podcast?
Oh, yeah.
So I think it'll be ripe for the Hysteria Continues treatment, I would have thought.
Yes.
So, yes, excellent. Anything else?
No, I'm going to save my others for another time.
Okay, excellent. Well, thank you, Nathan. Joseph, how about you?
Yeah, just a couple. I watched, of course, everyone knows I'm the kind of found footage guy. I watched one called Devil's Pass, directed by Rennie Harlan, of all people. And he's got these action movie sensibilities, so I find him an unusual choice to direct a found footage film. But anyway, this one's basically based off that Dyatlov Pass legend about a bunch of, I guess they're hikers or something, went out into this snowy wilderness, and they were all found like some odd time later, all dead. But anyway, I won't really go into that. But basically, these documentary students want to film a documentary about it, and they go out and to the exact same spot, and then all these little weird things start happening. It's typical found footage thing, but this is so boring. It's basically them. I mean, these are kind of, nice characters. They don't really bicker or anything, but they just sit in like a tent and just talk through the whole movie. And so when they finally get to the payoff, which is totally out there, I won't even spoil anything about it. It's not even worth it because there was no build up to it, and you're like, that's it. And, Rennie Harlan, I've loved a lot of his stuff. He did Nightmare on Elm Street Part 4. And of course, he directed what I think is the most underrated Die Hard 2, which I love. But it's just, why him, of all people, direct this? I mean, it's just so drab and boring. And the synopsis sounded so good. I was like, ooh, this could be good. And with him, directing, it might be something special. But it's totally forgettable. I would skip it.
Okay, because I know it's out on DVD and Blu-ray in the UK, but under a different title.
Yeah, it's known as Devil's Pass and the Dyatlov Pass.
Okay, yes, I think it's the latter in the UK, but I've got it on my Love Film queue, so I'm sure I'll see it at some point. But I'd heard good things about it, so that's a shame.
Well, it's just like, they get it's like so boring all the way through, and then we finally get to the end. It relies a lot on some really, really dodgy CGI effects that are pretty laughable. Right. If nothing else, I had a chuckle out of that, but the payoff and what exactly is going on is just totally not worth the time spent getting to it.
Okay, right. Okay, well, thank you. Forewarned is whatever. Anything else?
Yeah, I watched one more called Would You Rather. It's basically based off that game where you're talking to someone and say, would you rather do this or rather do that? And basically the story here is this girl, her brother needs a bone marrow transplant, and she's trying to find a job, to kind of support him and to pay off all her debts. And so she goes to she has an appointment with his doctor to discuss financing. And while she's at his office, there's a wealthy philanthropist in there who's offering to help her, and he's played by Jeffrey Combs. And he's like, just come to my house, this mansion. There's going to be 8 other people there, and we're going to play a game. And whoever wins the game, we will take care of all their debts, your brother's medical bills. We'll pay for your school, blah, 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 blah. And she's kind of weary at first, but she gets a call later that a job she applied for, they turned her down. So she's like, well, I guess this is my last ditch effort. So she goes over there, and basically there's like 7 other people. And Jeffrey Combs is there, and basically he wants to play a game of Would You Rather. He's going to ask these 8 people, like, would you rather do this or rather do that? And, the last person, who's standing there, gets all the money. And that's pretty much all I'll say about it. It's kind of a, I wouldn't want to call it a torture porn movie because, it does have torture, but it's not lingering on it. It's more of a standard thriller. And I really liked it a lot. It's really gripping, and all of the characters, bar, save one, are really likable, and you kind of rooting for them. And the premise is really interesting. And Jeffrey Combs is so good in this movie. I've always thought he's a good, I always thought he's a good actor and everything, but just for horror films. But he's so good in this. You don't even know you're watching Jeffrey Combs. He's that good. But the only problem I have with it is that they spend this entire movie, going through some pretty harrowing stuff, and you're like, pretty much on the edge of your seat. But it kind of takes a really sour, turn at the end. It ends like on a note that I did not prefer, and it kind of, put me off of the film. But overall, if you can kind of get past I guess you'd call it a bit of a downbeat ending. The rest of it is really gripping, and like I said, if nothing else, watch it for Jeffrey Combs because he's amazing in this.
Well, you've just ruined it for me.
What?
I'm not saying you spoiled it. I'm just saying I don't like these depressing movies. Like, what is wrong with letting the characters live happily ever after?
Well, It's not that type of downbeat. I mean, it's hard to explain. You'll just have to watch it. It really is good, though. It really is gripping. I think you would probably enjoy it, if nothing else.
I'll give it a chance.
Yeah.
Okay.
Damn, right. Eden Lake.
I don't think it's that bad.
What's your take on Eden Lake, Michael? Have you seen it?
Actually, I haven't seen that one. I've always meant to get see it, but haven't gotten around to it yet.
Okay, right. Okay, well, thank you, Joseph. Is that you spent?
Yeah, I'm empty.
Okay, right. Ew. Well, Erik, it's your chance to fill us up.
I will fill you up, yes. Okay, I'll just quickly mention a comedy film. And
I wouldn't put that in my mouth if I were you.
Oh boy.
I'm going to quickly... Can I talk now?
Yes, you can.
I'm going to quickly mention a comedy film that it has some slasher movie ties, and this is one that Meep actually recommended to me because it's one of his favorites. It's called The Last American Virgin, and it's just come out on Blu-ray here in the UK and Ireland, and it's a remake of Lemon Popsicle. So it's kind of a teen sex comedy. I'd never seen it before, but it has this really sort of sudden, bizarre twist. 2/3 of the way through, and it becomes quite dark, but in a good way. Not really dark, but it becomes quite serious halfway through. It stars Lawrence Monison, who plays Teddy Bear in Friday the 13th Final Chapter, which I'm sure we'll be getting onto later in the year. And it has Diane Franklin, who we all remember for her brilliant role in Amityville 2. I do anyway. It's actually a terrific little movie, I have to say. I was really surprised because I don't particularly like the sort of Porky's style humour, but this one... I have to say, it really did work for me, and it has a terrific soundtrack. You've got things like Blondie, Devo, The Police, and it's got the one U2 song I like, I Will Follow, played over sort of a darker moment in the film, so it's kind of a weird juxtaposition. But I have to say I did enjoy it, and it's actually directed by Boaz Davidson, who directed X-Ray, as far as I remember. Is that correct?
That's right.
Yeah. So that's the other slasher movie connection to it. I don't know if you want to chime in here, Meep, with any...
No, I'm glad you liked it. It's always been a favorite of mine just because it takes that typical Porky's kind of storyline and then goes to a different place with it towards the end, which I felt was a bit realistic in a movie that maybe might not be deemed so realistic. And the music always stuck out to me as a fabulous soundtrack. I have all the songs on different albums, but the way they're pulled together in the movie, I think, is pretty great. Do you know if the Blu-ray has the original soundtrack on it? I think the DVD may have skipped a couple of songs from the original VHS.
I'm not 100% sure, but it does have Blondie, Devo, Casey and the Sunshine Band, The Police. Several times I heard da-do-do-do-da-da-da played throughout the film.
Yeah, they definitely reuse songs, especially in that DVD release from MGM. They couldn't clear the rights for a couple of the songs from the original VHS version, and they just repeated other songs. So I'm just wondering, I might have to check it out, but I think I might need a multi-region Blu-ray player to do that.
Yeah.
I'll follow. I love that song.
It is a good song.
I hate U2, but I do like that song.
Yes, so. I'd be the same boat. I hate U2, and
yeah,
I hate
that
U2.
movie has a brutal ending too.
I hate U2 as well. Eric.
Okay, the other films I watched a documentary called Rewind This, which is a documentary about the VHS phenomena of the 1980s. Really,
I wanted to see that.
Yeah, it's available now here on iTunes. I don't know about. Well, I assume it is in the States because it's an American documentary. It starts off following a collector around the flea market, and there's some funny instances of him finding Titanic. Every stall he goes to, somebody has a copy of Titanic for sale, and it starts off being shot on VHS and looking quite grubby. But then once the documentary starts properly, it's HD quality. You've got interviews with the likes of David Gregory from Severin Films, Mike Vraney from Something Weird, Don May Jr. from Snaps, and Charles Band, and various other directors who would have been prominent at the time VHS was so popular. I think the ace up its sleeve is that it goes to collectors' homes and finds some real oddities in their collection. One of the things that really bamboozled me was one guy has this VHS of a Windows 95 guide, which isn't too bad, but when you learn it's presented by Matthew Perry and Jennifer Aniston, done in the characters they portrayed in Friends. So you've got Chandler and Rachel giving you this beginner's guide to Windows 95. I mean, what was the market for that, I wonder?
Could they be any more outdated?
I know. Very good. I see what you did there, Chandler. You also get clips. And they show clips. Sorry?
They could have. They got Toya doing it.
That would have been good. Yeah.
I mean, more outdated.
Oh. Shut at you. There's also a Leslie Nielsen golf video. They show clips of that. And a Bubba Smith, who played Hightower in the Police Academy series. He has a workout video they show. And there's also a Corey Haim documentary they show clips from, which was fantastic. You know, it was obviously done about 89, 88 or so. And you get lots of cool ads advertising VHS and Beta machines from the early 80s. So it's a great nostalgia fest. And it's highly recommended. I really enjoyed the documentary, I have to say. It's called Rewind This. I don't know if anyone else has seen it. I think it's more or less brand new, so...
I've not seen it.
Check that one out.
Yeah.
Because there is another VHS documentary on the horizon called Adjust Your Tracking, which I don't think has been released yet. I think it's still doing the festival circuit. So, but it looks quite good.
Excellent. Oh, that sounds good.
Okay, well, and the other one I watched was The Howling, the Scream Factory Blu-ray came out. Well, it came out I think in July, but I only got a hold of it recently, and it looks pretty good. It's not as good as other Scream Factory releases in terms of video quality, but it's still top notch, I would say. It's a film I've never really loved, to be honest. I much prefer American Werewolf in London. But this release, I was tempted to buy it mainly because it's bursting at the seams with extras. You got new interviews combined with the special features ported over from previous DVD releases. There's actually a great interview with the producer of all the Howling sequels, and he talks briefly about each one, sometimes apologetically, which is quite funny. And that prompted me to seek out The Howling 2, which is available to watch on YouTube, which is a film I haven't seen. I haven't watched it for about 10 years, but I think I can safely say it's up there with the likes of Fatal Frames for sheer WTF factor.
Yes.
It has Christopher Lee as a very embarrassed-looking werewolf hunter who travels to Transylvania with the brother of Dee Wallace's character from the original, along with one of her co-workers, and they are trying to hunt down the queen of werewolves, Sturba, played by Sybil Danning. And you got werewolf orgies. You've got optical effects that look like they've been done by a 4-year-old. You've got Sybil Danning getting her norks out in a scene that's repeated over and over again in a montage that's played under the closing credits. You've got a new wave band, and I never realised till I watched it this week, it also has a cameo by Jimmy Nail, of all people. It's wonderfully off the wall. I would highly recommend it for people who like trashy cinema, because it's one of those what were they thinking type movies. And I enjoyed it as much as the original Howling, I have to say.
I told you, didn't I, that we've mentioned this before, but Susie and the Banshees were approached to be the band.
Oh, I remember you saying that now, yeah.
And they turned it down.
Mm.
Yes.
Wow, even they turned it down?
Even they turned it down.
Ooh.
Oh, yes.
You see what I did there, Eric?
I did. Thank you, Joseph.
I defended your honor.
Thank you, Joseph.
Right. Okay. Well, Eric, thank you. Is there anything else?
No.
No. Okay. Right. Well, I'll just rattle through a couple I've seen. We already talked about Your Next, but one I forgot to talk about, I saw on holiday, was the 1973 TV movie Scream Pretty Peggy, which has got Bette Davis in it, and it's written by, I think it's all co-written by Jimmy Sangster, who was who did a lot of Hammer films, and it's basically has anyone seen it, first off?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
No.
Well, it's a classic story of an artist who lives out in the middle of nowhere with his elderly mother, played by Bette Davis, whose sister has vanished supposedly, and he puts an advert in for someone to come and housekeep. So he gets an attractive young student from the local college to come, and the audience is aware that somebody's been murdered by what looks like a woman in the opening credits, and it plays very much like Psycho all the way through, and you just keep on thinking there's going to be a really good twist at the end of it, but it just plays exactly like Psycho, so you can use your imagination. I mean, it's complete telegraphed all the way through, but what does make it is Bette Davis in it, who is always entertaining to look, and she's like a alcoholic in this, and it has a great end. The last line doesn't give anything away about what actually happens, but she just says after everything's cleaned up, she kind of turns to another character and says, "Can I have a drink now?" Which I thought was very, very nice. So just finish off the murder and mayhem with a whiskey sour. So
yeah, as you would
that's
do.
what Justin
as I would do.
Yeah.
Yes, that's how I could related to her very much in that movie. So that was that. The other film I caught up with on Blu-ray night before last was the Guillermo. I can never say his name. Guillermo del Toro.
Guillermo.
Yeah, I can't say it. It's one of those. I've got like a mental block on it. But it's Mama, which came out earlier this year. Which I kind of guess you could. It's not a slash movie, but it's certainly got elements of chase scenes and various things like that going throughout it. And I liked it pretty much through a lot of it. It gets a bit schmaltzy and it's got that Del Toro kind of hallmark all over it of that kind of hovering between reality and fairy tale kind of sort of dynamic all the way through it. But it fits, again, it was another film that was very successful at the box office, and it taps into that whole kind of Conjuring, Insidious, sinister style kind of movie making, which is very much in vogue in horror movies, which is that kind of the kind of slow burn creep fest, which again is one of the reasons why I think something like Your Next didn't quite work at the box office at the moment. But yeah, I liked it. Good enough. It gets a bit silly towards the end, but then that's what you expect. What did I can't remember if you've spoken about it before. We probably have.
I think I may have put it as recently seen when it came out. Yeah, I thought it was okay. I thought it did get a bit too schmaltzy, and I think I compared the ending to that of Poltergeist 2, right? Because it has that kind of but I did. I mean, it is decent enough. It's certainly watchable. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wasn't a fan of it myself. I couldn't get past her character, the lead girl who was also in that big movie from last year, that Oscar bait movie. What's her name? Is it Ron Howard's daughter? Can't remember her name.
Rance Howard, or is that her name?
Jessica Chastain.
Oh, Jessica Chastain. I always confuse her with Ron Howard's daughter. They feel like the same person to me. She's kind of boring, and she's kind of boring here with the same boring person she always plays, but with a hideous wig, I think.
Isn't she a goth in Mama?
She's kind of gothy, but I kind of felt like a movie goth. It definitely felt pretty fake. I just couldn't get past her and her angry character. Just couldn't get over the fact that she had to be stuck with children, and her just this little angry kind of gothy girl who just wasn't. Was definitely a movie actress trying to stretch her wings until she gets her next big role.
The thing that got me with that was the when the brothers reunited with the two children after 5 years, that the social services, whoever, buy them this huge mansion to go and live in. That's not very realistic. Is it?
Yeah, really strange.
I mean, what kind of place is going to have the money to have this massive mansion for people to move into? It's very bizarre, because I thought actually when it started, when they were going to be in that tiny little flat and it was all that done, I thought, well, at least that's a little bit realistic. But then of course, as in a lot of these movies, these people have to move into these massive houses, which is exactly what happened. But
maybe we all should just adopt children and live in big houses and drink our drinks and enjoy our lives, and get mad at our everything.
That sounds like a plan, apart from the children bit. But,
yeah. I'd rather live in a grubby flat, to be honest.
Yes. Yeah, no, fair enough.
We could hide them in rooms that we never go to, though, certain wings.
Or do what, what was her name? I can't remember her name now, the woman who was in Blood and Lace. I've got Victoria Graham, was it? Or somebody Graham. But where she runs an orphanage, doesn't she? Where she pretends, kills the children and pretends they're alive and then collects the money. So it's that kind of scam you could do, I kind of guess.
Totally.
But,
I'm outraged by that suggestion.
Well, not really. It was only a little suggestion.
No, you meant it for real. Police!
Yes, or maybe a hotel, a bear hotel. Like a bump off bears one by one.
Don't you dare!
What? Can you imagine the movie that Bear City they did? It was a kind of
it's actually called Bump Off Bears.
Bump Off Bears.
It's kind of catchy, bears. Actually. A good title.
Yes. Right. Okay. Well, before the long arm of the law fingers me, I think we shall move on to to the top 3. And as I said before, Meep is going to be doing top 3 Friday the 13th moments. And so that means you'll get the hallowed cat coming up in a little bit. So this is your number 3.
Would you care to dance? Hey, how come you turned that off? Relax, Jimbo. You're gonna love this.
Okay, Meep, what was that, and why did you choose it as your number 3?
Well, as you could tell, that might have come from 2 movies, actually, so I'm a bit cheating here right off the bat. The first little clip was from the dance scene from Part 4, Crispin Glover's famous dance scene. You guys remember that?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Who can forget it?
Pretty memorable. It's apparently a dance he was doing in the clubs at the time, and I guess the director just let him do his thing and captured it on the film for us to see forever.
It's like somebody being electrocuted, kind of, is what he's portraying.
It is kind of like electrocution. And I guess if he was electrocuted, it would have been a little more fitting towards the end of his demise. But yeah, I just always liked the dance scene in that movie, and it's just full on Crispin. I mean, what can you say? He's Crispin Glover. You can't get around it. That's what he does, and I think it's a pretty amazing little dance. And I just couldn't not pick it, since I do love a good dance scene in movies, and that certainly fits the bill. But I also included Violet's little breakdance number from Part 5, A New Beginning. I think Joseph might appreciate that a little bit. Who doesn't love Violet? I mean, come on, look at her. The way she dresses, her attitude. Unfortunately, her breakdance gets cut short a bit, so we don't get to see a lot of it. But she's got quite talent. If she would have lived, I think she could have been on. She could have been in Breakin' 3.
She could have been.
Which I would have definitely been in first in line to see at the time. But unfortunately, she doesn't make it. I just love... No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Justin has issues with Tiffany Helm's character in Part 5 because a lot of press materials describe her as a goth when I think she's not. She's more new wave.
Yeah, she's definitely new wave. I was going to say if they make Breakin' 3 at the very end, Lucinda Dickey's character will fall into like a bale of spikes, and then it'll actually be a mask and be someone wearing a Lucinda Dickey mask.
Be Turbo.
That would be good.
Yeah,
that would be good.
Definitely, yes. I on my Facebook page for my blog, I actually posted a photo recently of Tiffany Helm as Violet on the set of the movie, and she does look a bit like Susie in that photo. I don't know if you guys seen it, but
with the eye makeup is kind of, that's the only thing that's kind of gothy about her, isn't it? The rest of it is kind of new wavy.
Yeah,
and also goths don't break dance.
You don't do a lot, do you?
She's setting a trend.
Yeah.
Goths just break.
They just mope.
Yes.
And think about graveyards. That's all they do.
God, you generalise, Eric, don't you?
Yeah, basically. But it's true. In this case, the generalisation is true.
Breakdancing in a graveyard. I don't know. That might be fun.
That could happen.
That could be the beginning of a movie.
Yes. But like as you say, her kind of trend setting was cut short, quite literally.
Yeah, unfortunately. Apparently, the original version has her being stabbed in a place a bit lower than her abdomen.
Her vag.
Yes.
Her Lulu.
I also posted a photo of her on set posing with her proud area being bloodied. That just that's definitely an image you might want to check out if you're a Violet fan. So yeah, I just had to include both dance scenes. I'm just a big fan of dance scenes, and I love both of those. So that was my number 3.
Excellent. Right. Okay. Well, that sounds good. We will I need to sort out the cat, because you know what's coming next, don't you?
And Joseph and Nathan have to play a guessing game if they can guess where this clip comes from, because it's quite a cryptic clip.
Okay, here we go. So,
can anyone guess what that is?
Yeah.
That's from the first film, isn't it?
No.
Not quite.
No? I don't know.
Nathan?
I don't know. Eric's door creak.
No, it's not my door creaking. I think you'll have to give him the answer there, Meep.
So that was Corey Feldman as Tommy Jarvis in
the bed, and he's watching
in the famous bed scene from Friday the 13th Part 4, the final chapter. What I like about that scene is it's so out of place in a Friday the 13th movie. One, you have a kid character, which you really didn't have before that age, and he's kind of spying on the next door neighbor. I think it was the Judy Aronson Samantha character, and he wakes up in the middle of the night. He hears a noise. He sees the girl from across the way. He looks at her. Suddenly, she's taking her clothes off. He gets really excited and starts squealing on the bed because he's 11 years old, and he doesn't really know how to properly react to that. So he starts squealing like an 11-year-old boy would do. And I just thought it was a really cute scene to have in a movie filled with blood, boobs, and mayhem.
How does one properly react to seeing a naked woman undressed when you're 11 years old?
You want to go out on a date with her, maybe? You want to take her to the local Sizzler and then maybe have some fun in the back seat of the car.
What would your reaction be, Erik, to seeing a pair of bouncing bosoms?
Sorry, say that again?
What would your reaction be to seeing a pair of bouncing bosoms from your bedroom window?
Vomiting, maybe?
Oh, Erik.
They'd have to be Bob
It depends.
Hoskins.
Is it Bob Hoskins' bosoms or is it Judy Aronson's?
Well, that's what I was thinking. I can imagine, because you normally do this podcast naked, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
So I just wonder, sometimes you kind of cup a little bosom at the window.
Oh. I'm super slim. I've got a 26-inch waist and a 26-inch penis.
So you wrap it around your waist, basically.
Yes. What uses a belt?
Yeah, I do, actually. Yeah.
Oh, makes the perfect accessory for the boy on the go.
Yeah. There you go.
Right, okay.
What would you do, Justin, in that scenario?
I would compliment her via the use of sign language.
Would that be 2 fingers or 1?
Well, sort of like that kind of... Do you remember that you don't really get that anymore, do you? When people in movies used to go up to ladies and then go, wah, wah. Did you ever see that?
Like a wolf whistle, but only wah, wah.
Well, no, it's when they kind of...
you mean...
No, it's actually go up and pretend to squeeze their bosoms.
Oh,
and
right.
Make
Oh,
honking
like
sounds.
honk. Yeah.
I had that done to me in a bar in Manchester once.
Did you?
Yes, a guy from, I think he was from Czechoslovakia or somewhere, came up and started squeezing my boobies because I had my shirt off. And he was going, wah, wah.
We Italians have a word for that. It's called papare. Basically, I learned this from an Italian. I learned that from a weird Italian director I worked with a couple years ago, and he was obsessed with boobies.
Yeah.
And or boobies, as he liked to say. And he taught me the word for papare. It's the way of squeezing a woman's breast with lust in mind. And I learned a lot of things in that movie, and that was one of my favorites, I think.
Wow. Okay.
Such a good moment for me.
What was the movie, out of interest?
It was a small independent film that he actually self-financed called 1-2 Guess Who's Who. It's like a murder mystery in the Hitchcock vein. Of course, it's hasn't seen the light of day yet, as a few of the projects I've worked on tend to go. As independent filmmaking, as you know, guys, it's just pretty hard. So, but it was. I did learn a lot on that one, and I also introduced him to Russ Meyer movies. So,
I bet you loved
it was a
that,
learning experience for both of us.
Mm. So, Erik, when you had at that what moment, were you seduced?
I certainly was not. He was incredibly slim and young.
Right.
Oh, yeah, that won't work for you.
No. If it was Harold from Part 3 of Friday the 13th, yeah.
Oh, because you think he's really hot.
Yeah, apart from... Well, I'll get onto this later, apart from the toilet scene, yeah. But
yes, Erik, you can come on to Harold later.
Yes.
But before that, we need to get to Meep's number 1.
Jason! It's all done, Jason. You've done your job well, and Mommy is pleased.
Okay, Meep, that was your number one.
That would be the near climactic scene of Friday the 13th Part 2. I would be awfully remiss if I didn't pick the scene where Ginny had to use her psychological smarts and turn it against her attacker. In this case, Jason wearing a bag head and using his mother, of all people, her head and her sweater to emulate her. And I have to give mad props to Ginny for putting on that nasty ass sweater. Ew. And pretending to be her to get Jason distracted enough so she could take him out. And I think she does a really good job with that.
Justin probably loves that sweater because it's probably covered in cobwebs.
Well, not really. It's white, isn't it? Or cream.
True.
Isn't it blue or
Erik,
I thought it was gray.
At all.
I think it's supposed to be the white sweater that she wore in the original film, but it has gotten pretty nasty by then. And it was 5 years later, right?
That scene was shamelessly pilfered in Humongous.
Oh yes,
absolutely. Yes. Or Humongous was filmed before Friday the 13th Part 2, and I'm sure they had
probably stole that.
Yes. It's just a great scene, and like You're Next, you have a final girl who will do anything she can to get herself out of a situation, and she knows what she knows best. She uses her psychology major to get Jason's attention, and I think that's a brilliant thing to do. And you gotta love her.
Using her psychology major is all well and good, but how on earth does she think that sticking a machete in his shoulder is going to stop him? I mean, sticking a machete in anyone's shoulder isn't going to kill anyone. I'm sorry, Ginny, as much as I like you.
And also, if you notice...
Maybe she was aiming for his neck, but it just hit his shoulder by mistake.
Yes. She's too busy in the classroom to have proper machete skills. So.
True.
Yeah.
Yes. Talking of Final Girls, I saw, just an aside, the Blu-ray for The Fog. I kind of got that through as well at the same time as X-Ray and Schizoid. And I watched the Jamie Lee Curtis mini documentary interview on there that you spoke about last time, Erik. And it's really curious, isn't it, that she dismisses Terror Train and Prom Night, but is gushingly positive about Halloween 2.
That's what I thought was odd, yeah. But now there is a going to be longer interview with her on the new Halloween DVD, I believe, because it's footage from the convention she did earlier in the summer.
Okay. Sorry, I was stretching.
Okay.
I'm trying to read into that. Was there some kind of Jamie Lee Curtis slur in that yawn?
I was stretching my hooves out, so...
Yes. Anyway,
once again, the chances of getting Jamie
she
Lee
talks
Curtis
more extensively about Prom Night and Terror Train on that interview. So when the new Halloween Blu-ray comes out, she does really skim. Well, she skims over Prom Night in particular. Like she doesn't even talk about Prom Night, to be honest. Yeah.
Well, that's good. I was just wondering. Hopefully, Amy Steele will be taking part in the Crystal Lake Memories.
She is, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes, excellent. Well, that'd be good.
What's that movie Jamie Lee Curtis did where it's a newer movie and she's like a neighbor to someone? It's like a comedy. It starts with a K or something like the
Christmas with the Cranks?
Yeah, if she can do that or House Arrest, then she has no reason to slag off Prom Night or Terror Train.
Exactly, or Virus.
Yeah.
Which I like, but
it's actually kind of fun.
It's dreadfully trashy though, so yeah.
She's going to be doing. She's going to be on Dancing with the Stars, isn't she?
Really?
Really?
Yeah. And so I was wondering if it's... Well, this is what's been hinted at, I saw on the internet today. And obviously we're pre-recording this show, so it's not going out for about a week and a half after we've done this. But that's what I heard. But it'd be great if she did Prom Night. But it's probably unlikely.
Yeah.
She was so good in that.
Yeah. But
she carried that dance.
She should do the dance from True Lies. Oh, God, I'd watch that.
You perv.
Hey, I'm
you
saying
sit around here like calling her a horse, and then you want to watch like a sexy dance by her.
Well,
that's all sorts of messed up.
Now.
I'd watch that.
For the record, I do not think she looks like a horse.
Yes.
Good. Because I've watched Perfect recently, and she's hot in that, in her leg warmers and her headband.
It's just that I've heard some, internet jokes about people saying she looks like a horse, so I ran with it. Just to make Erik mad.
You do make me mad.
Well,
that's what you get for being such a bully all the time.
I'm not a bully.
Oh God, here we go. Here we go
again.
What I was going to say, trying to get it back on track, is thank you to Meep for the top 3 and
it's a very good top 3.
Very good top 3, and the number 1, of course, actually takes us nicely into this week's feature presentation, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. So, shall we go for it? Shall we head off to Higgins Haven?
Oh, let's.
Yes.
Okay. Right.
In our groovy Scooby-Doo van.
But just remember, we don't accept no food stamps.
No, absolutely.
An idyllic summer turns into a nightmare of unspeakable terror for yet another group of naive counselors. Ignoring Camp Crystal Lake's bloody legacy, one by one, they fall victim to the maniacal Jason, who stalks them at every turn. Friday the 13th, Part 3 will have you frozen with fear as Jason finds his way into your living room. Although he doesn't really find your way into your living room if you're watching it on a 2D VHS print, which is where that blurb comes from. This was the first of the Friday the 13th to be filmed in Panavision, or whatever widescreen format it's called. And it's also the first to be filmed in California as opposed to the East Coast. So it has a slightly different feel to the two parts 1 and 2. And the lake in particular looks less like a lake and more like a swamp. And it looks like a health hazard, to be honest. And that's what makes it feel slightly different to the first 2, although the plot of the film follows the blueprint of parts 1 and 2 quite closely. Another sort of new element to the series that is introduced in part 3 is the absurdity, although, not to say that 1 and 2 weren't without their silly moments, but in part 3 it's sort of amped up, and I think it's a knock-on factor of the 3D process. So and it's a welcome one in my book, to be honest, but although I've never seen the film in its proper 3D apart from the iffy Blu-ray transfer, which is in anaglyph and doesn't really work, I still have to say I love the way the film stops in its tracks for some gimmicky 3D moment. And I love that. I mean, I don't have a problem watching a 2D version of Friday the 13th Part 3, watching somebody stick a pole out onto the screen for no apparent reason, or popcorn popping, or a yo-yo coming out of the screen. I think that's what makes the 3D films of this era so much fun. I think the film as a whole is a blast from start to finish, from the flashy opening credits with the disco theme in the background. Then you're introduced to the brashness of Edna, the hideous toilet antics of Harold, which I still to this day can't believe was, something they committed to celluloid. That's it. I mean, it's... Oh God! I mean, I remember on the very first episode of Hysteria Continues, we did a top 3 what the fuck moments, and that was one of mine. Was Harold on the toilet. I love the brilliantly lame motorcycle gang, including the immortal line, which I still quote to this day: "Is this your rubber?" And the list of brilliant things in the movie is just completely endless, as far as I'm concerned. But I mean, it's far from being just a cheese fest. I think it successfully carries on the grade A slasher thrills of the previous 2 entries. I think Richard Brooker as Jason is quite menacing in sort of the casual approach he has to his actions. And in the introduction of the hockey mask is, well, as you'd expect me to say, is a touch of genius. I think it's quite a creepy image, the hockey mask. I mean, for years I didn't realize it was anything to do with ice hockey. I didn't even know what the mask was, but I still found it particularly eerie looking. The kills in part 3 are probably some of the most inventive this series had up until that point. You have the eyeball popping, pitchforkings, the spear gun. A wide variety of implements are used. It's not just limited to Jason and his machete. The final girl chase, I think, is really good. Although I don't understand some of Chris's choices in the film. For example, when she climbs up onto the rafters and tries to stop Jason by landing on him with her big fat arse. Well, it's not that fat. It's not that fat, to be honest. I mean, I could probably knock out Jason with my arse, to be fair. But her arse, it's hardly big enough to cause any damage to Mr. Voorhees. I can watch this film a zillion times, as with most of the early Friday the 13th entries. It's just incredibly fun. It works as a bona fide slasher movie, but also then there's those elements of absurdity that the 3D element brings to it as well that are incredibly watchable. So it would be one of my favorites of the series. I know Meep asked me earlier in the week, what do I think of, where would I rate Friday the 13th Part 3 in the series? Parts 1 to 4 I would have on sort of an equal level. Each has their own individual elements that I like most. Part 3 is fun because it's a bit silly in places, and that's what I love about it. But I have to say, the first 4 would be on kind of an equal level for me. And that's what's great about the Friday the 13th series, is that they didn't deviate too much in those early entries from each other. So you were just getting more of the same, but if you liked what the first one had to offer, then chances are you'd like 2, 3, and 4. It's part 5 when they started deviating off course and doing something slightly different, and that's where, it begins to split a bit for me. But those first 4 are brilliant, and 3, for me, is a great movie. One of my goals in life is to actually see it in a cinema in 3D as it was shown in 1982, which I've still never seen. But I know that 2 of us on the podcast have seen it in 3D in a cinema, one of which is Meep, who saw it at some ungodly early age back in 1982 or 83. Meep, what... I don't want to give you away. I don't want to give away your age, but you did see this on its original theatrical run in 3D, didn't you?
Yes, I did. I was pretty young too, and I don't feel guilty about it whatsoever. I mean, I may be a homicidal maniac now, but it was worth it because I love this movie.
And can you remember the 3D effects?
I do remember the 3D effects actually very well. It was the start of me wanting to see every 3D movie in the theater, and there were quite a few that year, 82, and especially in 83. And how I got to see it was I basically had a pretty bad dad who left us the year before, actually when my mom died, who passed away on Valentine's Day. That's the same weekend my Bloody Valentine opened, of all things. He took off, and I ended up being raised by my grandmother, who loved horror movies as well. But I used the fact that my dad felt guilty about taking off to go see any movie I wanted, and I wanted to see Friday the 13th Part 3D. And that's exactly what I did. I got to see it, and I saw it in the glorious 3D of the time, which was not the anaglyph. I can't pronounce it. Anaglyph?
Anaglyph, yeah.
Not anaglyph. Okay.
Anaglyph. I like anaglyph.
So, and I got to see it in that with those gray lenses. I remember the 3D glasses really well. It had the blood on the sides, and it was the gray lens, and it was really cool at the time. And I from what I remember, maybe I'm seeing it through rose or gray colored glasses, but I remember the 3D being especially good. It was, everything popped out of the screen. It was enjoyable. Everybody in the theater, and I saw it in a Times Square theater. Everyone was really with the movie, very loud and talking back to the screen because the effects were so lavish to me at the time, and there were things popped out right in front of my face, and I was loving every second of it. It was 3D. I was in love.
And what do you think of the film now, looking back?
Looking back at the film, I'm still in love with the film. I have to admit, I watched the first 6 films this week, and parts 1 through 4, I have to agree with you, are some of my favorites in the series. I think I used to love the first one more than the rest, and I have to say I think part 2 kind of maybe edges it out a bit. And part 4 really sticks out as well because it's a very well-made film, and there's a lot of entertaining things going on in it. But 3, in that 3D format, or even in the 2D format, really works for me. It's a fun movie. The characters are all very likable, which I like to see in a slasher movie. I like the final girl a lot. I know you guys might have some opinions on that. I always found her relatable. I thought she was cute, which was important for me growing up. And Still to this day, I think she's a pretty cute girl. Actually, she's in a movie I like a lot called Rivals from 1981. The story about a farm boy who comes to the big bad city, and he gets picked on by a man with a van of all things, and that man with the van's girlfriend is played by Dana Kimmel, and I think she's pretty good in that, and I actually think I like her in this movie. I know there's stilted line readings and all of that, but perhaps the script maybe wasn't up to par. I don't know, but and also filming a movie in 3D is kind of hard, so you have to hit your mark in a very specific place. So that might affect some of your performance. But I really like her. I think Ginny and Chris are my favorite final girls of the first four films, and I like Shelley a lot. I think he's a fun character. I like the prankster character in general in horror movies, and I think he's a fun one. I know he's almost like the boy who cried wolf in this one, and I feel bad that he had to go. Maybe I related to him a little bit in certain areas. It's a fun movie, like you said. It just it's shameless in its 3D. There are things that stick, like rabbit ears in 3D. There's hanging laundry in 3D, popcorn, like you said, baseball bats, yo-yos. It's really kind of out there. They just spare no expense and just put whatever they can in front of you. And I really dig that. I think that's what 3D really should be about. It should be about just putting you into the experience and being silly about it, not taking it too seriously, like some of the more recent 3D efforts. And I have to say, Part 3 marks my absolute favorite 3D experience of all time. It stayed with me over the years. I watched it last night in the anaglyph. Anaglyph. I'm sorry.
Don't say anaglyph, or you'll set Joseph and Justin off.
I can't help it.
Well, I wouldn't put that in my mouth if I were you. Might explode.
I hope not. Matron doesn't approve of banging in the ward.
Yay, my very first matron. Amityville 3D was also the other really, really good 3D experience for me. I feel like maybe they might have used a similar process. I don't know what they did, or I don't know what those two films did with where the others didn't do as well, but for some reason those two films stick out in my head as being my favorite 3D experiences of all time. And I actually saw all of them. There were maybe a dozen 3D movies between 82 and 84, and I made it my business to see all of them in the theater. And Part 3, it's just I keep coming back to it after all these years, and I've watched it countless times. I know I'm rambling, but I'm a fan, so there's that.
Yeah. I'm jealous that you got to see it in 3D, and actually somebody else who got to see it in 3D more recently in the last maybe 5 or 6 years is Justin. So Justin, can you tell us about your 3D experience with Friday the 13th Part 3?
Yes, it was about maybe even 7 years ago. It was at the National Film Theatre in London, on the West Bank, or not West Bank, what was it, along the Thames. There's the National Film Theatre, and they did a retrospective on 3D movies, and they had things like Dial M for Murder and other 3D films, because obviously the 3D film probably had its heyday in the 50s, and by I don't think, throughout the 60s and 70s it wasn't really used. So it was a real the early 80s was that very short-lived boom. But I remember seeing it and thinking, even though the print was a little bit bashed up, it wasn't too bad. The 3D was really, really, really well done. And one of the things that we've talked about, and I know Nathan would agree with this, is the fact is they stick stuff out. In Friday the 13th Part 3, it's shameless with things sticking out the screen, from Harold pushing the broom handle out, with the snake, with the juggling, with the yo-yo, everything. And I remember very distinctly, because I didn't see this originally at the cinema, but I did get to see Amityville 3D and Jaws 3D when they both came out at the cinema. And I remember the fun of the 3D movies in the early 80s was that kind of shameless gimmickry, and that whole thing of seeing people reaching up to touch or whatever's coming out of the screen, because they would hold it there for so long that actually the effect seemed to work, which is something I've never actually experienced with modern 3D, is that actually feeling like something is hovering, you've got like something big is hovering over your face. which I imagine happens quite regularly to Erik.
Like you don't experience that every Saturday night, Justin.
I knew it was going to go there. But yes, no, I remember seeing it and being really blown away by the big thing hovering over my face. Something hovering?
What's that hovering over our ears?
Yes. Sounds like someone's taken off. The mothership has landed.
Yeah, it does.
But
maybe it's what's her name from Wigan? It's gone off to spaceship.
Well, yes, it probably is actually. But yeah, no, just my tuppence on Friday the 13th Part 3 is my relationship with it is back in the early 80s, and I think we've spoken about this, is that before the Video Nasty debacle, Parts 1 and 2 came out, and for a long, long time, the other Friday the 13th movies weren't available on video in the UK, and Part 3 was the first one to be released, and I think it was about 1988 or 87 when it came out on video.
It was classified in 87 by the BBFC in June of that year, so it was probably maybe late 87 by the time it came out.
And I can still remember really, really clearly going down to the video shop and hiring that and taking it back. And I remember loving it, but then even at the time I had no idea that it had been cut quite heavily, even though the film's not particularly gory anyway. And we could talk a little bit about what was cut from the film later. But I've loved it basically I've got a love-hate relationship with Part 3. I think I was expecting it to be more like Part 2 because I'd seen those so often, Part 1 and 2, over the years before I saw Part 3, and there's a definite shift in tone and everything from 1981 to slasher movies in 1982, and everything gets a bit cheesier, a little bit more gimmicky, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. But Friday the 13th Part 2 took itself quite seriously, but it was still a very fun movie. Whereas Part 3, it kind of took itself seriously, but there was definitely kind of tongue-in-cheek throughout it. So I love, I watched it again, and it's like Erik, and I'm sure the rest of us, I could watch it till the cows come home. It's a lot of fun. Although I've kind of ribbed on Dana Kimmel many, many times over the years, I do think, she, and I said in my review, which I reread, which I wrote years ago, that she does kind of come into her own towards the end of the film as a final girl, and I think she's pretty good with the battling Jason, and that whole sequence after the eye popping and when she's the last woman standing, from that moment on to when she gets in the canoe, because after that gets a little bit silly, but it's still great. But it's that sustained suspense, and I just think it's probably some of the best in all of the Friday the 13th movies. I like the characters. All the characters are fun. And this is how you do a horror film. This is how you have annoying, not in air quotes, unlikable characters. But Shelley is designed to be somebody who annoys the other characters, but is actually still quite lovable. And that's how you do a character in a horror movie who is the one that's a bit annoying or is a bit, that's how you do it. Whereas it's something completely lost by a lot of modern filmmakers who just fill their films with real arseholes and really unlikable characters, which I just don't understand. And in these early Friday the 13th movies, you get the real feeling, although they are all ciphers, they're not really real characters as such, they're very broadly painted, but they all feel like friends who've gone away for a weekend. And that's part of the charm of it. And of course, Miss Dana Kimmel, what can I say that hasn't already been said? But I do, I like her. I mean, I think she sort of acts a little bit like a head girl. I don't know if you have head girls in the States, but it's kind of in schools where you have somebody's elected, a bit like. Do you have head girls in the States?
Never heard of it.
No, it's basically head girls before.
I think you have, yes, Joseph. No, but head girl is you have a head boy and a head girl in some schools, and what that means.
That's just making it worse, Justin.
You know what it means, Erik,
I do.
You?
We call them prefects over here.
Well, exactly. But you have. Well, so essentially they're people that are voted in to be like the main, kind of almost like on student council type of thing.
Oh, okay.
And sometimes they're kind of really, they're real go-getters and really kind of sort of it's a bit like, I don't know if any of you seen that Tiffany Bolling YouTube video. She's the one who's the 70s exploitation star, and now she's kind of a bit of a mentalist but she's kind of really earnest, and it's kind of, you get that with Dana. Her acting is slightly, I kind of guess, earnest. It's and there's a joy in it, and then certainly, Erik, you picked out some of the best scenes about "I'll never forget that horrible face ever," things like that, which you can't. I mean, let's face it, even Meryl Streep would probably have trouble with some of the dialogue, so I can't rag on her too much. But we'll probably talk a little bit more about her, and obviously one of the reasons why she got into the bad books with fans a little bit later. But that's my tuppence for the moment.
Yeah, and as Meep was saying, I think, or Michael, as he likes to be called, I think the stilted acting probably has a lot to do with the 3D filming, because people had to hit a very exact marks and, move in a very exact way that it probably was the delivery of lines was secondary to, hitting exact marks. So that's probably explains why maybe the acting is below par for some people in Friday the 13th Part 3. It doesn't bother me in any way, I have to say. Nathan, by my calculations, you were 2 years old when Friday the 13th Part 3 opened in August of 1982. So I'm guessing you were actually one. Oh my God. So I'm guessing you didn't see it in 3D on its original run.
No, but I saw it in 3D on my 3D TV.
In the anaglyph process, or the analglyph process.
Yes.
I guess so. I don't even know what that stuff is.
The red and green lenses that came out in Blu-ray in 2009. Yeah.
Yes, I did.
And what are your thoughts?
I thought that 3D was a lot of fun. I mean, of course, it's not without its problems. You could kind of see double vision.
For anything that's attempting to fly off screen, it you get double imaging. But for depth, I thought it worked reasonably okay.
Yeah, and I just it has a sense of fun that 3D does that no 3D movie made today really has, because like Justin said, aside from, maybe the Final Destination movies that use 3D, they kind of used it pretty shamelessly, but most of the movies that use it just seem like they're too good to use it to its full gimmicky effect, and I don't like that snobbish attitude. The other night, Wes and I watched the new Spider-Man movie, and it's supposed to be in 3D, and nothing came out of the screen at all, and I'm like, why are we wearing these big bulky glasses to watch this movie? I mean, for what reason? I could just watch it in 2D. I mean, it's just to squeeze more money out of the moviegoer, in my opinion. Oh, look, it looks like one of the characters is standing in the foreground and one's right there. The depth is incredible. I don't give a crap about that. I don't. It's just I need to get off my soapbox here. I
100% agree. I 100% agree with you, Nathan.
I just, they just don't use 3D like they should, and it's really aggravating when you expect to see a 3D movie and you go to the theater and pay that extra money and nothing flies out of the screen. It's very annoying, and I don't trust them anymore.
Yeah,
I would agree.
As far as Friday the 13th Part 3 goes, I adore the film. I think it's fantastic. It's got a huge body count, which is always a plus. And I love the characters of the motorcycle gang. I guess it's a gang. It's just two guys and, Fox. But I love them. And, the thing is, even their characters are supposed to be kind of unlikable. I mean, they're kind of bullying Shelley and Vera in the gas station. But I still like them.
Justin. Justin, you in that gang.
But they're still likable.
Well, Justin isn't, but, yeah.
But I don't know, I always thought it was odd that Fox asked Vera if that's her rubber when it was Shelley's wallet that he threw, over. I don't know. But, and
hey, Nathan, what's a rubber?
It's a condom.
What's a condom?
It's something used in sexual intercourse. You should look it up.
Sexual intercourse?
I can't go into the specifics because I'm not a sex education teacher.
Okay.
But I think you can figure it out.
I'll look it up on Wikipedia.
You go do that. Is it rude? Well, I mean, it was very rude of the shopkeeper. Why did she ask Vera, or why did she say that they don't take food stamps? I mean, was there some like racial thing going on there?
What are food stamps exactly?
It's government subsidized programs that
for unemployed people, is it?
No, for people who are really poor and can't afford to buy food.
Mm-hmm.
I always took it as that she was Hispanic, and I guess they assumed she was poor.
Racial profile,
even though she didn't look Hispanic at all. But
she doesn't look Hispanic at all. No,
she had that nice outfit.
I would have taken my business elsewhere. If, they're going to talk to me like that, I would have spat in her face. I would have made a huge mess by knocking a lot of stuff over that person would have had to clean up, and then I would have left.
Oh, Nathan, you're so assertive.
Well, I mean, that was very rude of her.
It was very rude of her, in fairness, yeah.
She was even more rude than Fox was.
I did like the fact that even though set up as being really like a bad motorcycle gang, when they go, they turn up at Higgins Haven, Fox gets all kind of, I don't know if we should be doing this when they're taking the petrol, and one of her co-workers goes, "Don't worry, no one will get hurt." So they're the crappiest bad motorcycle band, gang in the world, aren't they? In a good way, but yeah.
I also like that
came back into play.
The guy, Ollie, I kind of like that he tried to save Chris at the end as well.
What had he been doing, though? He'd been having a nap.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah, that's an unanswered question, I believe.
Maybe Jason knocked him unconscious and thought that he was dead, but he was wrong. In that situation, the best thing to do was to have been play dead. But, he wanted to be the hero. Actually, I don't even know if he wanted to be the hero. I think he was just mad at Jason and just wanted to fight him. But anyway, no, it's a great movie, and I kind of agree with you, Justin. Like, I don't know, Chris, even when I remember first watching it, she never really jumped out at me as a character until she battled Jason, and then I thought, okay, she's really good when she was fighting Jason. But up until that point, I don't know, I was kind of like hoping Vera would have been the heroine because I really liked her character. But, that just speaks for the movie that I really like all the characters. So, fun movie.
Yeah, I think I've spoken before about the chronology I saw the Friday the 13th series in originally, which was I started with Jason Lives Part 6, then I moved to Part 4, and it's only then I started watching them sequentially with Part 1, 2, 3. So the shift from Part 2 to 3 that Justin was talking about wasn't a problem for me because, I'd already seen Part 6, which was probably the jokiest of the lot.
Can you, sorry, Eric.
Sorry?
I was just going to say, and, we have to mention that, obviously Part 3 takes place like the day after Part 2. And I love the change in Jason.
He's shaved his head.
He's like in one night.
He's got his Remington shave thing to do his head in.
Yeah.
Joseph, what are your thoughts on Friday the 13th Part 3? Again, I'm assuming you were too young to have seen it in 3D on its initial run.
I was 6 years old when it came out, so I did not get to see it. But I did see it in 3D.
I would have been 8, yeah.
Okay, well, we saw it in 3D at Grant's house a long time ago. And
the anal glyph version.
Yeah, the anal glyph version. Yes.
Yeah.
That's a good term. I think maybe I might be the voice of difference of opinion.
Okay, you can stop right now. Okay, we'll go to the interview now, Justin.
No, I do love Friday the 13th Part 3, but unlike, I find that Vera and Shelley are the most sympathetic characters, and through the whole film, I really wanted them to get together because I thought, they had that kind of back and forth where he really likes her and she kind of appreciates him. She doesn't really necessarily have romantic feelings for Shelley, but towards the end, she kind of starts feeling a little sorry for Shelley when she realizes that he's just kind of misunderstood. So at that point, and I know this is a slasher film and you really want to see people get killed, but a part of me really wanted to see these two kind of maybe hook up. And another part of me just kind of wanted to see them maybe, it would have been a kind of a nice twist if they were the final couple and they both took on Jason. He used his knowledge of practical jokes and horror films to kind of turn the tables, and she just seemed kind of like a strong-willed girl. So I thought she would have made a better heroine than Dana Kamel, who, she does well at the end when she's fighting Jason, but for the most part, I found her kind of insufferable, constantly whining about, I was asleep against a tree and he kept coming at me. And it just kind of got on my nerves, listening to it over and over and why she shouldn't be back here. And I just really like Vera a lot a than.
If you'd been attacked by Jason in the woods, I'd like to see you being.
Now, here's
really
a question for you. Now, this has come up on my forums a lot. But some people believe that Jason had raped Chris, and I don't think that's true at all.
No.
That's a theory you hear a lot, yeah.
Yeah. But
it's not sexual.
No. I would not say he did that. But let's see. I'd give it maybe a 5 or a 6 out of 10. I do like it, but as far as rewatchability, it's hard for me to rewatch it over and over, like, say 2, 4, 5, or 6 for some reason. It's just, I find, I wanted Vera. I liked her more than Chris. I found Andy and Debbie. I found them kind of bland. I did like the Motorcycle Gang. I thought they were kind of amusing. And I think Richard Brooker, he recently passed away. I thought he was really good as Jason. I liked the scene where he shoots Vera with the spear gun, and he just kind of casually tosses it aside, and he just kind of starts walking off like, well, I did my job. Let's go see what else I can get into. It's almost like, apathetic about the whole thing. I thought that was kind of an unusual way to play Jason, but I think he did a really good job. But I have a few problems with it, but overall it is a good entry. Not as good as the first two, and certainly not as good as 4 or 5 in my opinion. Definitely better than the likes of, say, Jason Takes Manhattan, and so much better than Jason Goes to Hell or Jason X or any of those later sequels. So.
Well, duh.
How rude.
Well, no, it's true. I mean, part 3 is infinitely superior to 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 and Freddy vs. Jason, in my opinion, and the remake.
Can I ask a question? What people think? This is another thing that comes up quite often about Chris's character and her tussle with Jason about whether or not she was raped, but also how she got away. Because I was thinking about the chronological order of the films, because presumably she would have tussled with him a couple of years or a few years before the events of Friday the 13th Part 2, wouldn't she?
Yeah, if you watch that scene, her flashback, Jason attacking her looks exactly as he does in that film, and yet if it's the next day from, with Friday the 13th Part 2, he obviously looks different. So what is going on, chronologically in these?
Yeah, because he steals those clothes from Edna and Harold's clothesline.
And Harold's like 5'6", 5'7" at most, and Richard Brooker's like 6'8". How does he fit into Harold's clothing?
And he's hot, Harold is, but Richard Brooker isn't, so...
You're a strange individual, Erik.
I am. Where's this coming from?
That's hot to trot, literally, Harold.
But I was going to say, I like the 3D when I watched it on the television. I'm like Nathan. I don't go to see a 3D film for depth perception. If I want to do that, I'll go look at art or something. I want to see a 3D film for stuff, coming out of the screen and getting right in your field of vision and kind of startling you. And then I think for the budget, I think Friday the 13th 3 did a fairly decent job. And I keep waiting for a typical slasher film to just really utilize, what 3D should be, not just, ooh, look at that landscape back there. It looks so real. I don't care about that. I want stuff flying out of the screen.
Well, the My Bloody Valentine remake had a few shots that were pretty decent in 3D, I thought.
Yeah, I didn't think so. It gave me a headache.
No?
Well, see, I actually agree with you, Erik, but my problem is it was just a few scenes. Like Friday the 13th, it's like every 3 minutes there's something else flying out of the screen.
And it doesn't have to be a horror scene either. They'll just use any excuse, which is what's so brilliant about it. And it's also why I'm jealous of you guys in the States, because you're getting a proper Blu-ray 3D of Amityville 3 in the coming months from Scream Factory.
Oh, I can't wait.
I got another thing I want to ask you guys about Friday the 13th 3 now. This kind of gets glossed over a lot, but do any of you kind of find it disturbing? I mean, I don't, because I hate children, but do any of you find it disturbing that Debbie is pregnant and Jason kills her, and yet it's not really glossed over like, oh my God, he just killed a pregnant girl, and it never really gets brought up. It just kind of gets thrown by the wayside.
I've usually forgotten by that stage that she's pregnant, to be honest.
It's kind of gratuitous, It doesn't really...
It's like, people just kind of forget about it, and you're like, you'd realize she was carrying an unborn child. I'm pro-choice. So, I mean, not that I care. It's just that it's kind of a weird taboo thing, especially for way back then, and yet it gets glossed over. It's kind of unusual.
I can't imagine that Jason would be pro-life, would he? Really? So he's kind of equal opportunity killer, but
bombing any like abortion clinics or anything.
No. But doesn't I can't remember the character now? But didn't she say that it was just kind of it was just a real throwaway thing that was put in there, and they didn't really consider it?
Well, I also find it amusing. Like earlier in the film when they're in the van and they're all like smoking pot, and she's like, "None for me, I'm pregnant." And then later she's like, she's ready to drink a beer. I think beer would probably be worse for the child than marijuana. That's just my opinion. I don't know.
Well, Meep is our resident parent here, so maybe he can chime in.
I would urge you not to do any of those things.
I'm sitting there thinking,
and I think that her biggest...
I forgot Meep had a child. Sorry.
Her biggest crime is having sex in a hammock. I think that might not be good for the child. I think. She didn't seem actually very pregnant, so actually none of that would have actually mattered. I think, honestly.
Well, maybe she'll give birth to a hammock.
That would be very David Cronenberg.
Yeah. Now, what about David Cronenberg directing a Friday the 13th? There was a rumor about him doing one, wasn't there?
Well, he's in Jason X.
I heard a rumor he was actually going to direct the remake at one point, and then it kind of fell.
That would have been interesting.
That would have been very interesting, wouldn't it?
Well, I suppose this is as good a time as I need to go to my interview with Larry Zerner, who plays Shelley in Part 3. I spoke to him about 10 days ago. So, Justin, if you want to play the interview.
Okay, here we go.
It was a joke! I guess I fooled you, huh?
Well, I'm delighted to welcome to The Hysteria Continues the first man ever to don a hockey mask in a Friday the 13th movie. It's Mr. Larry Zerner. Good afternoon to you, Larry.
Good afternoon to you, Eric. Great to be on the show.
Great, thank you. And a belated happy 31st birthday to Friday the 13th Part 3, which I believe turned 30 on August the 13th of this year. Doesn't seem that long ago.
Turned 31.
31, sorry.
31.
Yeah. Yes. So, Larry, you're there handing out invites to a preview screening of The Road Warrior, which we know over here as Mad Max 2. And you're approached by the writers of Friday the 13th Part 3 to play the role of Shelley. So how long after that meeting were you actually on the set filming? Can you remember?
Let's see. There was a casting process which took place over the next few weeks. And I would say about a month.
That quick? So it's quite a fast turnaround.
This was definitely early January that we had that I was there. It was that's when I met them. It happened in early January, and we started filming maybe early March.
Yeah,
it's been so long.
Well, the filming took
4 to 6 weeks, something like that.
Yeah, so it took about 3 months to film, though, didn't it? It was quite a long shoot for a Friday the 13th film because of the 3D, obviously.
Yeah.
And what was this your first time in a film set or had you worked in one before?
No, I hadn't. It was my first time, so I had a lot to learn really quickly.
Was it all you imagined it to be? Was it glamorous? And did you get the VIP treatment as a member of the cast?
It wasn't like, I'm not Tom Cruise, and it wasn't that. But we had a trailer, and I had with a dressing room. I mean, little room, like not big, but a little place. And I remember the first day on the set, like we broke for lunch, and lunch was steak and lobster. Ooh. And I was like, oh my God, well, it's the first day, tomorrow is tuna fish and peanut butter and jelly. And it was like, no, the food was fantastic every day. So in essence, they did have a great caterer, and we had great food, but they treated, that was for everybody. That was the crew. But the cast, I was just happy to be there. I didn't need any, fancy digs, just wanted to be on the set and watch.
Yeah. Do you remember your first day on set at all?
Yeah, I do, because it was the scene at the store, approaching in the Volkswagen and in the store, and mostly I remember it because we had to reshoot it. So all that footage was thrown out and they started afresh because that was the first day. So that was the first day of shooting for everybody, and they just didn't have the 3D down yet.
Wow.
So we filmed that scene, and then I think we broke and didn't come back for a week, and then we came back and we redid that scene.
And wasn't there more to that store sequence originally than what we see in the final cut? Something involving you firing a champagne bottle at the bikers?
That's in the script.
Oh, right.
But that was taken out well before we got. So that was in an early draft of the script, or the original draft of the script. There was this where after we knock over the bikes, then we leave, and then the bikers chase us. And I use the champagne bottle to sort of as a pop the cork and hit him, and he goes flying off the bike, which sort of explains why they were really upset and wanted to burn down the barn. They were they got messed up. And that would have been really fun, but I think that probably would have been a lot more expensive.
Speaking of deleted scenes, you mentioned in Crystal Lake Memories, the book, that you were there on set for the infamous filming of the alternate ending where Dana Kimmel's character is decapitated in the dream sequence.
Yeah.
Do you know why that footage has never come to light or has been included as a DVD extra, or why did they cut it out in the first place? It sounds like it was a far more spectacular ending than what's there now.
Yeah, if they had asked me, I would definitely have said, I didn't see I saw him filming it. It looked spectacular, and there are pictures in the book, Crystal Lake Memories, that you can see of what was going on, and I thought it worked great. I think they decided to have something that sort of, came back in a circle to the original movie, and have that kind of scare. It is what it is. No one asked me what I thought. They must have had some reason, and nobody seems to know where that footage is anymore. We did try and find it. And spoke to a lot of people when they were doing the DVD back in 2005. We sent out trying to find it, but couldn't find it.
Yeah. Speaking of which, didn't you organize the commentary for that DVD back in, I think it was 2004, the Crystal Lake to Manhattan box set?
Well, I made the calls. They were doing the DVD, and I wanted to do a commentary, and I started. I called Dana and Richard and Paul and said, "Look, this is your one shot. No one's ever going to ask us to do a commentary ever again." So, and they're like, "All right, let's do it." So it's a good commentary.
It is.
There's four of us on there.
It's a great listen. It's a shame it hasn't been carried over into subsequent DVD and Blu-ray releases. I don't know what. You're a lawyer now. Maybe there's some legal reason they couldn't carry it onto the new discs.
No, there's no reason. They own it. I have no idea why they don't put it on. I just don't know. I can't tell you.
Well, that's one of the things that endears you to us, the fans. It's that you're so enthusiastic about your participation in a Friday the 13th movie, whereas other people, might want to sweep it under the carpet and pretend that it's not part of their CV or their resume. There's so many people who say, I was young, I needed the money, and that's why I did, Friday the 13th part, whatever. But you always seem to be really enthusiastic.
It was a great time. I had, it was my one little thing as an actor, and, it's cool. I got to be the guy who brought the hockey mask to Crystal Lake. That's great. I wish my career as an actor had been a little more, but I know a lot of actors who I grew up with who did a lot more work or were a lot better actors than me. But you say, what did you do? And they can't. Had this part in this movie that you never heard of, but I can tell anyone, yeah, I was the guy who brought the hockey mask farther deep, and there's nobody who doesn't know what that means.
Exactly.
So that's cool. And
you have a very recognizable face as well. I imagine you probably were recognized a lot around the time the film was released.
Yes, when the film came out, the movie was very popular. It was the number one movie for the first 2 weeks it came out, and I had a little taste for about a month of what it must feel like to be famous. because I just go everywhere I went. People would talk to me, or I'd hear people whispering, and there's Shelley. That I could just hear it, and so that was fun. And then now it's but I'm sort of glad it. Experiencing that, I go, boy, I could see where that gets tiring after a while. So I'm glad I'm sort of obscure now, and not many people recognize me anymore.
Yeah, did the negative reaction of critics, which was to be predicted, I assume, did that rain on your parade at all? Did it bother any of you working on the film, or did you know that it was coming?
Yeah, I don't think any of us really. I mean, would I have been happy if they said this is the greatest movie ever and the performance by Larry Zerner deserves Oscar consideration? Yeah, I would have been thrilled. But you know what you sign up for. It is what it is. So I can't say that it was. And I actually, some of the reviews said that the acting was fine, so that was okay. There was just one review in the Washington Post where the guy said something like, Larry Zerner plays a character so obnoxious that you end up rooting for the killer. That one cut, as you could tell, because 31 years later, I still remember that review.
Yeah, no, I would disagree with him. I think, Shelley, for all his faults, you can see why he's doing the things he's doing. And if that Washington Post reporter wants obnoxious characters, he should watch some of the more recent horror films from the last 10 years. Then he'll have something to moan about.
Yeah, he should.
Yeah.
He should.
Have you ever crossed paths with Steve Miner since the film was made? Because he seems to have distanced himself from the franchise to some degree, and even in the upcoming Crystal Lake Memories Blu-ray documentary, he's not listed as being a contributor.
Well, partly he doesn't live in Los Angeles, so he doesn't live in California. So it's partly a matter of logistics. And yeah, Steve has not really been a guy who wants to go back and relive that part. But that being said, I did about 5 years ago. I decided to play hooky from work, and I went to go play golf. And I went over to the local golf course, public golf course. Just signed up, and they put you with 3 other guys, and make a foursome. And so I meet the guys, and the guy says, "Hi, I'm Steve," and I go, "Hi, I'm Larry." And we looked at each other, and that was Steve Miner.
No way.
Just as an amazing coincidence, we had both just come in and said, "We're going to play golf today." And so I spent, we played a round of golf, and I spent, 4 hours with him, and we told stories and reminisced, and he was fantastic, and it was great to see him again.
Oh,
so, he doesn't bad talk the movie. I think he's happy with the movie. It's just not his thing to go and go talk about it. And yeah, I know they I'm very good friends with the people who made the new DVD, and they really tried to get Steve, and it just wasn't happening.
So anyway, after Friday the 13th Part 3, I know you appeared in one of my favourite TV shows, Fame, in the first season. But what happened after that?
After that, there was a couple of commercials, a few other small things, but not that was sort of all the items of note. And so went to law school, which is what I do today. I do lawsuits, litigation for people who, our scripts have been ripped off or they are owed money by producers. And then I do the contracts for various things, including I do the contracts for the Crystal Lake Memories documentary. So those guys.
Yeah. So you get to see the sort of seedy underbelly of Hollywood then, do you? Firsthand.
Yes, I
Sounds
do.
Like it, yeah.
A lot of seedy underbelly, yeah.
And when did you start going to fan conventions for Friday the 13th? And do you enjoy them?
I think the first one was, because it was probably like 2004, 2005.
And what was your experience like? Was it fun? Was it scary?
It was amazing. It was the first time someone had done like a bunch of Friday the 13th people. So in the room, besides me, it was Adrian King's first convention, Amy Steele's first convention, Kane Hodder was there, Ari Lehman, who was Jason and the Jason boy in part 1. There were a few other people, and we were just in a room at this hotel in New Jersey, and or at the Meadowlands. We were at the Meadowlands, and there was like an hour wait to get in the room to get autographs. It was just insane, and especially for Adrienne, who had, and she talks about a very bad experience with a stalker, which made her very shy and very afraid. To have like this outpouring of love for her, and she spoke about that. It was very emotional, and that was great. And then I went to there's a convention, Monster Mania, in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, which is run by Dave Hagen, and it's a fantastic convention. And he did 30 people from Friday the 13th, including all the Jasons were there. Which was amazing, and Betsy Palmer was there, and a bunch of fun. Dana came, and Laura Park Lincoln, and Kimberly Beck. It was just that was so much fun. People were just, So I don't do a lot of conventions. Just my schedule doesn't let me, and it's not it's not my thing. I'm not a Final Girl or a Jason, so it's just not. There's limited people who want Shelley's autograph.
Did you know some of the actors from the previous or post Part 3 movies before you went to the conventions?
No, but I've met a lot of them, and we all sort of get along, and so it's always great to see them. And we're all sort of friends when we get to the conventions. And I talk to Kane Hodder or Amy Steele or any of the other people, and it's always great. It's a real community, and everyone's always great. The fans are great. It's a lot of fun, and it's that sort of surprise. I don't think anybody, these conventions didn't exist when I was when we did the movie, and this ability to go out and meet the fans and have people tell you how much the movie means to them is fantastic.
Because there's actually a terrific video of you and Felissa Rose from Sleepaway Camp doing a karaoke version of Summer Nights on YouTube. I urge everyone to have a look. I assume that was at a convention, was it?
I don't know how great it is, but Felissa's great. And we were at the Big Bear Horror Film Festival and decided to sing Summer Nights together. I don't know that John Travolta and Olivia Newton-John have to worry, but she's got a better voice than I do. But that was fun.
Can I ask you about a little quiz show called 1 versus 100, Last Man Standing?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
You appeared on that in 2007. Sure. And not only did you appear on it, you won it.
Yes.
Are we allowed to say how much you won?
Sure.
$250,000. Can you remember the question?
$250,000, yeah.
Can you remember the question that you won on?
Oh, yeah, of course. That's something. The question was, who had been married the most number of times, King Henry VIII or Larry King? I don't know if do you know who Larry King is?
We do know who Larry King is, yeah. But I would just tell you in advance, I would have got this question wrong as well.
Yeah. Well, there were a bunch of questions. We started with 100 people, and then it just kept knocking down, and so you had to get all the questions right. And then there were 5 of us left when we got to that question. But really, there was a guy on the show named Ken Jennings, who I don't know if you know him in Europe, but in America he's well known because he was on the show Jeopardy, and he won 73 days in a row, and he's known as the world's best quiz show guy, and really no one ever beats him. And I had they asked me the one question that I knew that he didn't, so I got lucky.
Yeah, because the clip of you winning, not the whole show as far as I can tell, is on YouTube. Maybe the whole show is there. So I had
the show's on in 4 parts, but you can see the clip, and that links from my Wikipedia page.
It does, yeah. That's how I found it, yeah. And getting back to Friday the 13th Part 3, finally, do you watch the film on a regular basis? Are you sick of it at this stage, or if it's on the telly, if it's on the television, would you sit back and watch it, or?
If it's on the television, I'll flip just to see where they are. And I'll watch for a couple minutes, but I won't sit and watch. I mean, I own the DVD. I've just seen it so many times. Although I just got asked to do a podcast next week and to do another commentary with them. So I'll be watching it next week for the. I've seen it a lot.
Well, as a fan, I think we've probably seen it as many times as you.
two of us on the podcast have seen it in 3D. I haven't, unfortunately, apart from the Blu-ray, which doesn't really work, I have to say.
No, it's horrible. The 3D Blu-ray is horrible. The seeing in the theater is a whole nother movie. It's a whole nother movie, and I would encourage everyone who watched the movie and goes, well, it's not that great. That's because you haven't seen it in 3D in a theater. In the theater, it's so much fun because all that 3D stuff. There's all these shots in the movie. The snake, the rat, just sticking things out at the screen that just don't work at all on TV. Because they're meant to be seen in the theater and to come out at you. But when you do see it with a crowd in the theater, it's phenomenal. And especially the Vera's death with the arrow and Rick's death with the eyeball. When the eyeball popped out, I still remember seeing in the theater, and I wasn't aware it was coming because I just hadn't really looked at the script. I was dead by that time. I didn't need to look at the script and see what was going on. And that eyeball comes out, and the whole audience jumped. It was fantastic.
I can imagine. Yeah,
that 3D on the Blu-ray is you just get a headache. It's unwatchable.
It is. Yeah. But I still think the film is incredible in 2D. I don't mind the shots of things sticking out of the screen that don't come out of the screen, obviously, in a 2D version. I think they add to the fun, to be honest.
They might, but to see in 3D. I mean,
it is
in 3D. It was good 3D. And
a cinematic goal of mine in life is to see that, Jaws 3, and Amityville 3D in a 3D triple bill. That would be my dream come true.
I saw Jaws. I saw Jaws 3D,
and
I don't remember much about it. I just remember there was like an aquarium, right, and it crashes through. That's all. That's the only thing I remember about that movie. And I never saw Amityville 3D, although I did end up later on representing George Lutz, who is the subject of the Amityville horror. Not part of those other two movies were done without his.
Yeah. But he took legal action against the people who did the remake in 2005, was it?
Yeah, I was his lawyer on that too.
Oh. Okay, listen, Larry, I've kept you long enough. Thank you so much for agreeing to do the interview. You're very kind.
My pleasure.
And have a great day.
Okay, you too.
That'll teach you a valuable lesson. A beautiful girl like you should never go out in the dark alone. Being a jerk is better than being a nothing.
And that was Larry Zerner speaking to me about 10 days ago or so. And what a great guy he is. He's really enthusiastic about the franchise as a whole and Part 3 in particular, which is nice to hear. Why do you laugh, Joseph?
As a whole.
Oh, God, you can't say anything on this podcast. Man.
No, you can't.
You can't say
everything.
Everything I wouldn't put that in my mouth if I were you. Might explode.
I hope not. Matron doesn't approve of banging in the wards.
She certainly doesn't.
God, I love that clip. Thank you, Justin.
I want to talk a bit about Harold and Edna and their shop. I was mentioning earlier about the hygiene issues I would have with their shop, their grocery store. Harold is seen at one stage just, casually drinking from orange juice bottles and then putting them back on the shelf, eating a donut and putting the half-eaten donut back in the box on the shelf.
Well, I have a problem with orange juice just sitting out on the shelf. It should be cold. It should be in a refrigerator.
Well, you see, it might be the long life sort of artificial type orange juice, maybe
like Sunny D or something.
Yeah, exactly, like Sunny D. Yeah.
Apparently, Sunny D, all right.
If you drink too much Sunny D, apparently you turn orange.
Yeah. Great.
That's what I heard.
That is true, isn't it? Yes.
It is true. Yeah. So I mean, I question the hygiene standards in their cabin as much as I like, or in their shop as much as I like Harold, I have to say. Although once he's on the toilet, I mean, Oh, that scene is so disgusting. There's actually there's this website called moviemistakes.com, which is what it says on the tin. It deals with movie mistakes in films. And one of them is, and I'm reading this verbatim from the website, when Harold is going number 2 on the toilet, you can hear his crap plopping into the toilet water. However, when he is making a search in the bathroom, he walks by the toilet and there's nothing in it. The toilet is clean, but he never flushes it before making a search. So there you go. That's a bona fide
too much time on their hands
for a movie. Sorry?
Some people have too much time on their hands, don't they?
Right.
It's a magic
which is what somebody said to I assume it was Joseph who calculated how many hours worth of podcasts we've done.
Yes. Well, it's kind of, what was it? It's 6 days worth, isn't it?
6 days, 9 hours, 51 minutes, and 23 seconds.
Wow.
Not counting this episode, so it's longer now.
Mind you, this episode's going to be longer than the Crystal Lake Memories, I think.
True.
Eventually, yeah.
Speaking of
that, yeah.
Speaking of all things toilet, why is there a big crescent-shaped hole in the door of the outhouse in Friday the 13th Part 3?
That was the classic door for outhouses a long time ago.
Was it? But
Moon.
Yes, the half moon shape. Yeah.
But people can look in on you when you're doing your doo-doo.
See, I always wanted to take that scene with Harold on the toilet and just kind of take his sounds out and put the sounds from like Dumb and Dumber in there when Jeff Daniels is on the toilet. I thought that'd be funny.
You'll have to remind me of what that is.
In Dumb and Dumber, where he gets fed the laxative and he goes up to Lauren Holly's toilet and it's just extremely loud.
Yes, it's over the top.
Yeah.
Well, thankfully I'm more mature than that.
What do you guys think of Edna? Are you fans of Howard's wife?
Edna to me looks like a 23-year-old woman who's trying she's trying to dumb down or was it dress down to look like she's a 45-year-old or something.
Frumpy old housewife.
Yeah. What's your take on it, Meep? What do you think of Edna?
I wouldn't take her out on a date anytime soon, I don't think.
Well, no, she doesn't wear those rollers all the time.
Well, maybe if she lets her hair down, we'll talk. But I don't know. Mean. Until then, yeah.
Do you think it's? I was going to say, but just about because Edna watches the. I mean, it's I'd say clever but effective way of doing a recap from the last film, isn't it? Of which is Steve Miner, isn't it? Who's actually the newscaster,
he is
the director. But is it? Do you think it was believable that Chris and all of the others and Paul, they don't know anything about what's happened?
Yes, because it's 1982. There's no internet. There's limited TV, I suppose.
And they're driving into town, aren't they?
Yeah, and it's only the night, the morning after the night of Part 2. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
It just seems.
Plus, they're young. They don't care.
Yeah,
and they're smoking all that pot. And
but they would have gone to that store, and there would have been newspapers, wouldn't there? But anyway, I'm reading too much into it. There's no point, is there? You could go mad trying to.
Well, they had a newspaper guy who was like, he didn't have all the information. He's like, tear out the front page, stand by for a scoop, copy boy, stop the presses.
What I think is more absurd, and I think Justin, I haven't read your review recently, but I think in the Part 3 review you mentioned that Chris is practically horizontal out of the car window as she's supposed to be driving, looking at the crime scene of the Edna and Harold crime scene.
Yeah.
Which is hilarious. I mean, she practically has her whole torso out of the car window, rubbernecking.
Yeah.
I hate rubberneckers.
That's awful.
Yeah.
In the blurb you read, Eric, the back of the VHS box, I noticed actually a mistake that I haven't really paid attention to before, because it says that the kids in this movie are counselors.
Exactly.
Getting killed, and they're not.
No, they're not counselors.
No.
Also, did you notice? Sorry, that the in the trailer it goes on about these are Jason's woods, but in the film they never mention the word Jason.
That's true.
Yes.
That was one of the trivia questions I'd seen, is that what's the Friday the 13th movie that did not mention his name?
Yeah.
Well,
that's right.
It does mention his name if you include the recap of Part 2.
Does it?
Okay.
Yes. Ginny says Jason.
Ginny says it, yeah.
Okay. But
let me ask you guys, sorry, we're back to Dana Kamel for a second. Everyone always kind of rags on her for her acting and everything, but I found her love interest, what's his name, Paul or
Rick?
Rick. He is terrible. I think he is so awful in this film.
Yes.
Him and Chili.
Yeah, Chili.
Oh, I love
God.
Chili.
Oh, God.
She's the character that walks. she has a walking scene, like she sees dead bodies and she just walks casually.
Well, I've mentioned this before, but if you watch the commentary track on part 3 from the Crystal Lake to Manhattan box set, Larry Zerner sort of apologizes on behalf of poor, I think it's Rachel Howard is her name, saying she was really sick that day, that she was acting that scene where she's like, oh my god.
It's not good, is it?
But as Meep was saying, it's a 3D movie. It had to be very technically precise, so you have to forgive the actors a certain degree. I mean, even if you watch Jaws 3 or Amityville 3, you'll notice that the acting's a bit lacking in those too, even though they have quite highly experienced actors in them.
Yeah, no, it's fair enough. I mean, also it adds to the beauty of it anyway as well.
It does to me.
It's not a bad thing, but yes.
Can I ask what your guys' favorite kill in the film is?
Mine would be Andy getting split in half.
Although
I really want to see that in uncut, but they just haven't. I don't think they'll ever release that.
But the behind the scenes photos of that are pretty bloody and gross.
He gets cut down the middle, doesn't he? But he's
doing a handstand. He's walking through the hall, and then he just kind of looks at. He's like, oh, then whack right through the middle. And I'd love to see that uncut. It looks like very, very painful.
But the way he did it, because when you actually see his body up in the rafters, he's been cut sideways, not down the middle, isn't he?
No, I think if you freeze frame it, it looks like he's been cut. He's been cut down the middle, only down to his waist, if you know what I mean. So his, from his waist down is split in two. If you look at it properly, yeah.
It looked to me like he'd been cut as if he'd been cut sideways. So
I know what you mean. Yeah, but if you freeze frame it, I think you'll see that it's kind of he's been cut in two. Of course, that was a scene that was completely missing from the version we saw on VHS.
Yeah,
Justin.
That's right.
Yeah, you never saw Andy in the rafters at all. Yeah.
I also like that they set that up a few times. He's always walking on his hands, and then that's how he gets killed. It's kind of pay off. It's kind of cool. I actually like the spear gun to the eye myself.
That's probably my favorite.
Yeah.
Rick's death, where he gets his head crushed and the eyeball pops out, is pretty good too. Is it him? Yeah, it's him.
Yeah, it is.
My favorite's Debbie's.
I quite like, although we don't see it happening, I like Fox being nailed to the rafter with the pitchfork.
Yeah, that's neat.
And I'd say that looked amazing in 3D as well, with the pitchfork coming out the screen.
Yeah.
One disappointment I have with this film, I missed what's his name? Is it Ralph Gormy as the Doomsayer? The guy they had at the beginning.
Walt Gormy.
Walt Gormy, yeah, as Ralph. It's Crazy Ralph. The guy they had in this one is not quite as memorable. I liked him, but I preferred Crazy Ralph. They mistakenly killed him in the second film. I thought, it would have been interesting if they just kept going with these movies and he was in every single one, always warning these kids, and they never listen. And they kind of take out the whole Doomsayer thing after this film. I don't recall that in part 4 or 5 or 6 or.
It's in. They bring it back in part 8. Jason Takes Manhattan. Yeah.
But on the 6, isn't there like the guy in the cemetery who's kind of like warning?
Yeah,
he's just kind of like lackadaisical about it. He's just like, he just doesn't want to do his job, and he's more like he's not really. I guess you'd call it proper Doomsayer though.
Right.
I feel myself, I'm a bit of a Ralph. I won't say Crazy Ralph. Trying to convince Justin that Toya is brilliant. Every week,
I would agree about the crazy bit.
I knew you would.
Crazy Fat Erik.
Hey.
Well, you came up with it.
I'm a 26-inch waist.
26
feet.
26 feet.
That's actually a horrible thing to say. That's a horrible.
Have you measured your waist, Erik? Have you actually measured your waist? Are you that narcissistic?
No, let's not talk about it.
Okay.
You brought it up.
You guys are bullies.
Thank you, Michael.
No, Erik actually referred to himself as Crazy Fat Erik one time, so I ran with it, and so all of a sudden I'm the bully here.
You are the bully here.
You're all bullies.
I usually try to remain quiet.
Only Nathan.
Just in the background. I keep waiting for Nathan to bully Erik one of these days.
He's too nice to, yeah.
Nathan's going to go off suddenly one day, isn't he? He's going to explode. Well,
I get upset about a few things. Eden Lake, 3D, things like that. That upsets me.
Yeah.
Talking smack about Texas Chainsaw Massacre, maybe? Will that say
that could upset me, yes.
I get upset about the lack of refrigerated Coke Zero in my local Tesco.
Well, Nathan, how come?
Tesco's
Nathan,
a supermarket.
When what's his name, Enzi Fulci fan, when he badmouths the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, why don't you send him a hurtful private message?
Well, I don't do things like that for a variety of reasons. One, everybody's entitled to their own opinion, no matter how wrong it may be.
Yes. Well, you know that I'm not a big lover of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre series.
That's the only reason that I haven't ever picked it. I don't think I could withstand any hurt, feelings on the podcast anymore.
Oh. Okay, Justin, would this be a good time to go to our second interview of the podcast?
Yes.
Well, I was going to say, since we're releasing this on Friday the 13th, which comes out, the Crystal Lake Memories comes out on the same day, so you get like a double interview. So we're looking forward to that Crystal Lake thing.
We are. And do you want to introduce your interview, Joe?
Yes, this is Daniel Farrens. Is that it, Nathan? I always get his last name wrong.
I'm pretty sure it's Farrens.
Daniel Farrens and Tommy Hudson, Houston. It's TS. I don't know, but I'm speaking with both of them, and we're kind of helping them promote the Crystal Lake Memories, the definitive Friday the 13th thing documentary that's coming out. It's going to be a whopping, what is it, 9 hours long? 7 hours?
7 hours plus a bonus disc of 4 hours, I believe.
And it's basically me speaking with them, and I've met Daniel in the past, and he's a wonderful guy, and he has a real love for these films as much as we do. So go ahead, play it.
Okay, and if by any strange quirk of fate the interview doesn't happen, you will hear Tumbleweed for the next 10 seconds.
You'll just hear us bullying Erik for a while.
Yes.
Yeah, as usual.
You'll hear.
I mean, Erik bullying me and Justin.
What?
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Well, here
I never bully you, you big smelly goth, and you big stupid Chattanoogan.
Ooh, quaking over
here. Dorothy Parker in the house.
You should have called me like a hedonist or a misanthrope, because you're always saying I'm like abusive towards women and things.
I've never said that.
Oh, God,
you're like, all you care about is Pamela Anderson and her boobies, which I don't.
Well, it's true. That's all straight men like. Meek will agree with me.
Yes.
You see, told you.
I'm an ass man. I boobs could go either way.
Okay, and what kind of introduction could Daniel Farrens and Tommy Houston wish for their interview? But here it is.
Okay, to start, how about the uncut footage to Fridays 2 and 3? Any word on that? I know it's probably lurking around a vault somewhere, and I guess you'd call it lost.
Well, you guys probably know that I actually produced the deluxe edition DVDs for the last, Paramount entries in the series, which I did parts 4 through 8. They had already done 1 through 3 prior to my coming on board. That's a big question. I don't know the answer, to be honest. I would love to think that part 2 and 3 have, that footage is sitting somewhere in the Paramount vault. I just didn't have access to it because I wasn't working on those particular films when I came in. I don't think anybody bothered to look at the time. I don't think they were really concerned with it, or they just weren't aware that there was so much sort of, legendary lost footage for those movies, especially the ending of part 3. I would love to dig in there at some point and see if we could find it if another opportunity came along to produce another version of the movies. But, now I think Warner Brothers is about to release a box set of the series on Blu-ray, so I don't think that'll happen for quite some time. But you never know. It could very well be there. I mean, we were shocked when we found how much footage there was for part 4. We compiled all of that stuff, and it's on the DVD. I hope it makes it on the Blu-ray. I'm not sure if that's going to happen or not, but hopefully it will. But yeah, I mean, there was a lot of footage from 4, not much from 5, not much from 6, 7. Everything was destroyed. Sadly, we found an empty box, basically, with a couple little stray rolls of film. And an order from some executive back in the early 90s saying to destroy all the outtakes. So, a lot of stuff has been lost, but, there's always hope.
I hope that we one day get to see Dana Kimball's Chris get beheaded, personally.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was talking about, right? That's the sort of legendary lost ending. The cool thing is with our show, and Tommy was a huge part of the effort to get all of this stuff. Was we got some really cool photographs, behind the scenes photos of that ending. So the way we kind of cut it together, it almost looks like, kind of what it might have looked like had the actual film footage existed. So at least there's photos of it.
Yeah, we were actually talking about that earlier on the show, and Justin had read somewhere, I believe it might have been in script form, I don't know if it was filmed, but there was another alternate ending to Friday the 13th Part 3 where Jason would be disemboweled, and I'm assuming the camera would be below him and his guts would just kind of come out in 3D towards the camera lens. Is there any truth to that? Have you seen any footage, or is this just in script form, or have you actually heard of anything like this at all?
That one I've never heard of. I mean, I have the various drafts of the script that that were used during production, and there's nothing like that I've ever heard of. So that might be a fan rumor.
That's news to me as well. Sounds interesting.
Oh yeah, I found that really interesting, and I was actually wondering if it ever made it on camera. I'd hoped it had, but assuming did not.
Yeah, I don't think so on that one, but again, I could be wrong. I don't think so. Larry Zerner is a good friend of mine, and big part of my life in a big way. So, he would have told me he was there when they shot those endings, and he said the only other one that they shot was the one where they beheaded her.
Mm-hmm.
And that's even truncated. He said it was, it wasn't exactly how it was in the script. In the script, I think she ran into the barn and saw the dead bodies. They never shot that.
Oh, right. Well, what about the new film that I'm assuming Paramount might be fast-tracking? I'm not 100% certain, but do you know anything about that?
Just like what everybody else has heard, that the rights have reverted, at least for this next movie, back to Paramount, but I don't know about fast-tracking. I think that's being a little more,
I think that's maybe wishful thinking on a lot of people's parts to rejuvenate the franchise and get it out there again. It would be great. I would... Personally, as fans, I'm sure we want it to be fast-tracked as well. But I think that Dan's right. I think a lot of what we know is a lot of what everyone knows, and sometimes you question, the legitimacy of all those reports.
Okay, what about people who were not involved in the upcoming documentary? Was there anyone in particular that you wanted involved, but for any reason whatsoever they declined? Were there any suspect reasons why they declined, or anything of that nature?
Well, Tom really took the lead on that, so I'll let him.
Yeah, I'm trying to go through the movies. On these shows, it's always the dream to get every single person and everyone who's become a star. For obvious reasons, we would love to have Kevin Bacon have taken part. I certainly had conversations with people who, work with him and schedule his, affairs. It's just that these people are so busy. There was never any real pushback in terms of a negative sense. It's just that a lot of people are busy, and it's really difficult to get people when we're on one coast and they're on another, or they're on, they're traveling the day that we could possibly fit them in. I don't know, you probably have to throw out specific names because we have so many people, and we have like 150 or more people in the show. It's actually really tough for me to quickly recall who isn't in the show and maybe why. But, in general, everyone is supportive, even the people who can't do it. Some people who can't interview send photos in. So, the great news is everyone from the franchise in general is really supportive of the project.
Yeah, the one that I just have to chime in is I wish we would have gotten. I know he's just sort of been one of those people who's been a little resistant to this over the years, and I guess he has his reasons, as Steve Miner, who directed, 2 and 3 and was involved since the very beginning in the first one. But, I don't know. I don't know his actual reasons. I know Tommy reached out to him a number of times. We've tried reaching out to him on previous projects, including the book that this is based on. He just, I think he's one of those people who's just sort of moved away from all of this stuff and doesn't really want to talk about it.
All right. How about favorites? You pick one film from the Friday series as your favorite. Which one would you choose?
Well, I know where Tommy's going.
I'll let Dan go first. We'll let him give the good one, the good answer.
Right, exactly. Well, for me, I'm really like an original, kind of, I call it the original quadrilogy. So 1 through 4 are really my favorites of the series, although I do like some of the later ones. I think, in particular, like 6 and 7, I think are fun still to watch. those would be the Fridays that I really kind of hold up as being, the core of the series and kind of where it started and really where it really found its audience and its fan base and where it was sort of still scary. I think, in the second one, which is the first one I saw in the theaters, that scared the living daylights out of me. And then 3D became more fun, even though I still thought that was scary. And then the fourth one I just think is the slickest. It's kind of the one that was ready to sum it all up, and it just felt like a big movie. It felt more like an event movie. It's hard to narrow it down to one, but I would just say the first four for the most part.
I mean, for me, I think I am also someone who loves original movies. I mean, so I would, in terms of this question, I would take part one out of it, simply because I do love part one. I think it's a fun movie. I think it's scary. I think there's a lot of great, fun sequences. The kills are really creative. So taking part one out, just because I do love that movie, I love part two. I think part two is a great continuation. It's like a direct sequel. Amy Steele as Ginny is such a fantastic final girl. We never really learn what happened to Paul, so I'm still thinking about it to this day.
Or Ted at the bar.
Yeah, he bought the bar. So two is, I think, a really great movie. I think it's fun. I think it's slick. I think it's scary. I love Baghead Jason. I just really like that movie. Now, as Dan had said earlier, he knows what I'm going to say.
Drum roll, please.
For pure, rewatchability, fun, having a great time, probably also a lot of nostalgia, because I snuck into this movie with two friends, is Part 7. I just think Part 7 is so fun, and there's nothing better than television floating through the air at Dr. Cruz and, heads in planters flying through the air, Carrie versus Jason. It just doesn't get any better than that.
Yeah, that is a lot of fun, but talking about the footage being destroyed, that is just ultimately heartbreaking to hear that.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I had to be the one to call John Diekler. And now this didn't come out during the making of Crystal Lake Memories, which is our new documentary, which is coming out on September 13th. This was a discovery I made when I worked for Paramount doing the deluxe edition back in, I guess it was 2008 or 2009. So yeah, I mean, I had to break the news to John that sadly somebody signed an order to just toss all of that footage. Now, that being said, I always feel like maybe there was that one guy working in the vault or whatever who just kind of sort of, made off with it. You never know. You never know. So, maybe one day it'll surface mysteriously, but, as far as we know, just based on the empty box that was, handed over to us with, a couple, the only shots that existed that were, film footage that just for somehow or another made their way into, other boxes. They were probably just moving things around. But we did find a couple shots from Part 7, which we included on the DVD, which are just like shots of King in the water and very, seconds long, maybe 20, 30 seconds of footage. The only other thing that exists is that John Diekler had a VHS work tape, of that early director's cut or one of the cuts. So he was kind enough to let us, pull some footage from that. But the quality is very bad, and it's a really old tape. And I think that's sadly all that exists of that movie, in terms of additional footage. Although fans have sort of had, and one fan in particular came to me recently and said, wouldn't it be great if we just went back and shot inserts of all of that gore? Maybe that could be done. Somebody would have to put some money into it, but you couldn't really CGI the faces or the characters and make them look 20 years younger. Although I guess work for Jeff Bridges. Yeah, maybe you could. Laura Park Lincoln, she's ready. But I think in terms of if you just wanted like gory inserts, I think you could go out and shoot that and then include it. Make the ultimate version. I know some fans have talked about it, but that would just take
the first one to help them.
It would. And he'd do it for 10. And he'd do the whole thing for $10.
I totally would.
But anyway, but yeah, that is the unfortunate part that and you have to although you get mad at Paramount and say they did this and they ruined our chances of ever seeing it. At the time, we're talking about the early '90s. There was no thought that there would be where we are today, where all these special editions are put together and behind the scenes, and it just didn't exist back then. So they weren't sort of seeing the future with this stuff. They just sort of were trying to make room in their, storage room.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like, that was like one of the parts of the heydays of like VHS and, You just didn't have bonus features, and you didn't have, like Dan said, you didn't have special editions. You didn't have, like, well, let's include all this uncut footage. I mean, it's funny how it would almost be interesting to look back and see the genesis of bonus features and things like that, because it just was a non-issue. It was a non-entity back in the day when these movies were being made.
It's totally true. And if the footage existed, believe me, I worked for these guys for, whatever that 6-month period on that, on those deluxe editions. There was no, discussion or any, qualms about, well, we're going to reserve this footage for another version down the road. No. They were like, whatever you need. And they just ordered all the boxes up from all the movies I was working on. There were just, this stuff is held like a salt mine somewhere in Pennsylvania or something. I mean, it's dusty and it's really old. But, whatever they had, they gave me access to it. So there was no, reservation about what we could and couldn't include.
Well, I think, Dan and I talked about this. I have a friend who was working on, trying to find features for bonus DVD, and, they ended up tracking down, like, all the lost footage from a particular film. It was literally on some random guy, curve going in the trash. It was 3 film canisters that he happened to have gotten, through, like, a friend of a friend of a friend, and he had no idea what to do with it. And it's just some of the stuff literally just ends up in the garbage. And it's really unfortunate because, again, people aren't really thinking, well, we might need this one day. And the bottom line is I think a lot of studios particularly might not see the value that a fan sees in a movie that will ultimately become a cult classic. To them, it was just an okay movie that did well, but it wasn't a blockbuster, so who will care? And I think that you should never underestimate what fans want to see down the line.
Especially with, like, these franchise movies. I mean, there's in terms of another one, Halloween, the original Halloween, all of the outtakes, all of that footage was found. In fact, I think it was bought on eBay, of all things, 5, 6, 7 years ago now by a collector. And, I think there were some negotiations with, the producers, and I got involved at one point or another trying to, facilitate a deal. And to this day, it hasn't come together. It's just unfortunate. I think over time, also what happens if that stuff isn't stored properly at the right temperature in the right vault, it just disintegrates. So I'm just worried that over time, Halloween is going to sort of fall to, I hate to use the word fate, but, it's just going to not exist. So I just hope that at some point or another, those people can come to some sort of an agreement. It just seems silly to me that they can't kind of put their egos aside a little bit and say, hey, this is for the fans. This is about film preservation.
Right, exactly. Let's see. Erik actually wanted me to ask both of you, can either of you in any way defend Jason Goes to Hell?
Okay, I'm going to say, Dan, can I jump in?
Yeah, go.
I will say this. I vividly remember seeing that movie when I lived in Indiana. It was up for, I think, a weekend. And I went on opening night with a bunch of friends. And I got to tell you, that opening sequence is pretty cool. Because you certainly, absolutely have no idea where they're going to go after they, without question, blow Jason Voorhees to bits. And I think what's so funny about that is, when you're watching these movies and everyone always jokes, well, I would just blow him up or put him in a blender or, it's like that's what Adam did. He blew up Jason Voorhees in a way that ended him so unequivocally final. He's dead. I loved that. I thought, okay, this is going to be really interesting. How are they going to rescue this? And that's where I'm going to stop. Dan, take it away.
Yeah. I don't know. I always give people kudos for trying something different, I mean, even with Halloween 6, we tried something, we kept the formula, but we tried something a little different, there were, at that point, 8 Friday the 13th movies with Jason in the woods, so Jason in Manhattan, and doing, what he does best. I have to give him credit for trying something different, whether or not they were successful, except for anybody's, individual opinion. Some people do love the movie, so, there's always a fan. Our one, by case in point, one of our editors on the show, Luke Rapalowski, he thinks Part 5 is a good movie.
I think Part 5 is a good movie.
Well, see, there's 2 fans for Part 5. I personally don't like Part 5.
It's so interesting because I was actually watching I kind of did a little mini Friday the 13th marathon with some of the movies with someone who had not really seen some of the later ones. And Dan, when you mentioned Part 8, it makes me think back to we watched 8, 9, and 10. He had never seen them. And the funniest thing was, like, through all of the movies, he just kept asking all these questions and like, why is this happening? Well, that's really interesting, but what does that mean? And I finally just said to him, have you ever seen a Friday the 13th movie? You really have to stop asking these questions because it's not about the logic at the end of the day. It's about what's happening. It's just the actual moment because could go back to the whole, cliche of the woman's running through the woods at a good clip 5 minutes ahead of Jason, and somehow he hops in front of her when he was just walking.
Right, exactly.
I go with the movie logic.
You got to go with it, and I think honestly, I think Jason Giselle had like one of the coolest kills, like where he kills the girl in the tent, and just splits her in half. I mean,
oh yeah,
and not the coroner, doing her in, but there were some clever kills. I think actually what I did like was the sort of stunt casting and putting John LeMay as the lead. I thought that was kind of cool. He's been in the TV show. So
that movie also had some really good, the gore that remained intact. Some of it's pretty good, like the cop who melts, and there's some fun stuff to watch. I mean, that's the thing. I think that movie has a lot of watchability to it. I think it's interesting, like Dan had mentioned, you try something new. At some point, you have to go off that beaten path because otherwise you are literally remaking the same movie over and over again. And again, yeah, kudos to them for taking a risk and trying to do something that was really, really off.
Oh yeah. But like when you think about like we were just talking about Part 7 and like the ultimate Uber fan edition with like insert shots of like the gory stuff, and you get to watch Dr. Cruz get ripped open by the weed whacker and all of that. I'll bet you if you could take out all of the body snatcher Jasons in that movie and just put Kane in the hockey mask and doing all of the same things, I'll bet you that would be a much cooler movie that fans would like.
Okay, and neatly segueing from different directions in this series, if either of you had free reign to make your own Friday film, would you stick to the tried and true Crystal Lake formula, or would you take it in a different direction? If you took it in a different direction, where exactly would you take it?
Well, I've told my ultimate sequel idea for years. I don't think anybody's listening, but I think it's the one that I would want to see, and I think a lot of fans would like to see, which is when we bring all the surviving women from the earlier movies back as sort of like a survivors club, and they have to go back to try to defeat Jason because their kids have defied them, and they're college-age kids that have decided to go up to Crystal Lake and party with their friends and, thinking their parents are just sort of, living in the past, and this is history, and of course Jason returns, and the women have to kind of band together, sort of like Jamie Lee and H2O, I think, but like a group of them, so you'd have like Lar with her powers, and Amy being smart, and Trish, and and Chris if she's out of the mental hospital. But I think to sort of pick up and see where their lives are today at the first part of the movie would be really cool.
My answer is really the same as Dan's, and I know that he talked about this and I've talked about this with him. I completely agree. I think you want to bring back those characters to give them their chance to basically make peace with the man who is the monster who has destroyed their lives, essentially. I think fans would go nuts for it. I think that there's so many great things you can do, and you just get that moment where you have that final showdown where it's all of those ladies who survived staring him down, and you just know that that's your Act 3 beginning, and it's just going to get crazy from there.
And just a big bloody battle to the death, It's sort of like Freddy versus Jason, but him versus sort of like, we call them like Jason's devils, they're coming after him, and I think there's just something very cool. In fact, we touched on that in the documentary, and a fan who was really great kind of created like almost like a concept poster for that idea. So you'll see that in the show.
Awesome. Now, if you had to pick, say if Jason were going to kill every single one of these women but one, which one would you leave standing to face him?
Any of them, because they're all survivors, but I think the strongest would be, well, I don't know, it's tough because, Tina's got telekinetic powers. I don't know if you could ever really take her down.
I would imagine that's the thing. Every time he got close, she would just like, she could just like poof and you're gone away. But I mean, for me, okay, I agree with Dan. I think they all have to, you don't want to kill any of them. But if I was backed into a corner, Ginny, man, Ginny is up in nails. Like, you can't take Ginny down.
Nope. Well, she's smart, and she's also sort of tough, and she fights back. She was, I think she's the closest to Jamie Lee Curtis that Friday the 13th ever got, because Jamie could kind of like hold her own, even though she was running for her life, and so was she. But there was still something kind of, it gives it a whole other discussion of, the kind of, I don't know, androgynous quality that these characters have. But I think those, that she certainly was the, most resilient.
Well, and I feel like, and without, this is truly not meant to be sexist, but the final girls in horror movies, in general, they have like the strength of a man, and that, that femininity and emotional power of a woman. I think that they're really a construct of both sides of the best coin. I mean, they need to be strong, but they need to be smart. And frankly, like, Ginny tapped into Jason's emotion. She actually went into his psyche, and that's why I think she's such an interesting character, because when she's backed into a corner, she doesn't start to cry and cower. She thinks, what can I do? She gets in their head. She got in his head. And
that was the best. Yeah, again, another great reason why part 2 is, I think, much smarter than people might give it credit for, because it is an older movie, and it doesn't have state-of-the-art effects and all of that, and it definitely plays more more along the lines of the first movie, kind of it's the same vibe, the same sort of tone. But no, I mean, I think a lot of thought went into her arc. Like, it's rare you see a survivor or even a horror movie with a character that actually has an arc, has a reason. They set her up from the beginning as one who could kind of go toe-to-toe with Jason, but psychologically. And I think, and also to another extent, I think they did the same thing with Tommy Jarvis in part 4. I think that's why that character sort of lived on. He was the kid that could, he could do what all the adults couldn't do. He took on Jason and defeated him, at least for a little while, for a moment.
Oh, exactly. I mean, even for the briefest moments, she used, her psychology background to basically topple Jason. I mean, it was really a very clever way of kind of, subduing him, even for the briefest of moments. But I don't know if either of you have seen Humongous from 1982, but they basically lifted that, that whole construct from Friday the 13th Part 2 with the girl in that film basically pretending to be the killer's mother and trying to, get into his head. I mean, it's straight out of that film.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Ron Kurz wrote that, and, and he wrote that script, I think he told us in his interview, something like 3 weeks or something. But, I mean, he really kind of had something, and Steve had something, and I think they definitely knew what they were doing and where they were going. There was no mistake about the trajectory of what the movie was supposed to be. Although I still want to know what happened to Paul.
Oh, yeah, I think everyone wants to know what happened to Paul. It's just kind of open-ended.
It's funny, one little insider thing I can say is that we were given a copy of the writer's script, the actual draft that he was using when the film was in production. And on the back, I don't know if it was his writing or somebody else's, but somebody had written, not like recent, this was back when we were making the movie, and he wrote the words, "Paul is dead." Just a handwritten note. So, there you go.
Wow. Sorry, Paul.
Yeah, like Amy said, too bad he didn't come back for part 3.
Yeah, exactly. But just one last question, since we covered Friday the 13th Part 3 on our show today, Erik wanted me to ask if either of you know of any kind of plans for a proper 3D Blu-ray edition of the film.
I don't know of any plans. I mean, that's not something I'm involved with right now, but I mean, it would be great if they would finally release that. I'm not sure what version is going on the Blu-ray set that's coming out in a couple weeks. I don't think it's any different from the ones we've seen before. But, I mean, hey, it would be terrific if they could finally put out, the definitive. Marty Sadoff, who did the 3D effects, he's had, a plan for years and years and years to release that, in its intended version. But I just don't think anybody's really, committed to doing something with it. Unfortunately, I wish they would.
It's a shame, but, yeah, thanks for the interview, guys. I mean, you guys got any kind of last words like you'd like to say to everyone out there that's listening?
Well, I hope people will search out our documentary. Right now it can be It's up for pre-sale on our website, which is www.crystalllakememories.net. And the cool thing is if you order through the website, you get a bonus disc because, the 7 hours that we compiled is not enough. You get over 4 hours of extended interviews if you buy the Blu-ray. It's a combo pack. It's a Blu-ray /DVD combo pack, so you get it in both formats. Anyway, but yeah, I hope people will buy the documentary and hopefully they enjoy it.
It's definitely, so much Friday. It's more Friday the 13th than you could ever imagine, but you'll realize at the end of all 11 and a half hours or whatever it is, that's exactly what you want.
All right, that was Daniel and Tommy, and we really appreciate the interview. And guys, if you're a Friday the 13th fan, I know there's so much out there, pertaining to Friday the 13th, and pretty much, if you're a real fan, you probably know everything there is to know. But I think this documentary is really going to maybe open some eyes to stuff you might not have known about. So check that out on Friday the 13th of September. That's coming out the exact same day as this is released, so you get double whammy. So there you go.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Joseph. Who wants to go? We're going to talk a little bit of trivia because it's one of those films that a lot's already known about this, and obviously, as Joseph said, you can't get anything more definitive than the Crystal Lake Memories, the book, and now the 7-hour documentary. So
well, I'm sorry. I was just going to say I have a couple of things. I mean, everyone knows pretty much everything, but. I think the only thing I have that which people actually do still know is that obviously, yes, this was Jason's first foray with a hockey mask. I'm not sure of what truth to this is. I'd read this somewhere in a horror magazine a while back, but apparently they picked the hockey mask because they thought the bag that they wore, it was just not very practical, and they needed the actor to be able to see out of both eye holes, so that's why they went with a hockey mask. I mean, does anyone else know another reason why they'd picked that particular mask?
I mean, I heard, I don't know if this is right, that they somebody had the hockey mask with them and they needed something just to while they were kind of setting up shots, and then they liked it, but it didn't fit the actor's face. So they had to do they all decided it was a really good, a really good one. But again, up until this point, well, up until part 4, every time they made one, they didn't really think there was going to be another one. So they didn't really realise that it was going to take off in such a way. I mean, who could know the hockey mask? Because I think
a lot of people are always wondering why didn't they stick with the bag, and I just read it was just for practical reasons. But
it would make sense.
Definitely it is sense. Iconic. I do prefer the bag. I think it's creepier, but the hockey mask it's legendary. So the only other thing I have, which I'm sure a lot of people might know this, and a few people might not because they might not have heard of it, but the barn used in Friday the 13th was filmed. It was also used in the Twisted Nightmare from 1980. Was it 7 or 88?
Oh, I didn't know this.
Yeah, it's the exact same set, and I believe that set has been torn down or it burned to the ground. I'm not sure, but if you go back.
Yeah, the house burned to the ground, but the barn is still there.
Yeah, if you go watch Twisted Nightmare, you will see a lot of the exact same shots and locations and stuff. But, like I said, everything that's about this movie I've heard a million times, so that's pretty much all I have.
Okay. Does anyone else? I've got a few bits.
Do you have any background?
I have a couple of bits. You will. I know they were trying to develop different storylines for part 3 to try to make it a little different to stop the Jason thing from part 2. And one of the storylines was going to involve Jeannie going to a mental institute, and where she was going to recover from the events of part 2, and then they wanted to make it a bit of more of a psychological horror movie rather than a slasher movie, but then they decided that was probably the wrong way to go since fans of the movie really wanted to see a proper slasher movie, and so they abandoned that. Other than that, I know that director Steve Miner lived next door to Stan Winston when he came out to L.A., and apparently Stan Winston was this weird, crazy guy who wanted to be a stand-up comic.
No, that was Justin.
Who's bullying who?
Yeah, exactly, Eric. You're showing your true colours again.
That laugh was funny.
Yeah, sorry, continue me. Sorry.
No, that's fine. And Stan Winston decided that he wasn't. I guess he realized he wasn't. Every time he went up on stage, he wasn't funny. So he ended up joining the Walt Disney makeup program, and that became history. And Sean Cunningham went on to become an assistant for. Steve Miner became an assistant for Sean Cunningham, and that's how he ended up with the Friday films. He ended up being an editor on, I think, Last House on the Left, after starting out as an assistant, which is a dream all of us who work in film production would like to start out as an assistant and end up becoming the editor of the film. Anyway, he recommended someone, an assistant of Stan Winston's, to do the makeup for parts 2 and 3. And that's how they ended up with the guy they ended up with. And also,
sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to talk about your trivia about, the original idea of Jenny going to a mental ward, and say that I'm actually, even though I love Amy Steele, I'm glad they didn't go that route, because they might have killed her off, and then I would have been very, very upset.
Well, then you could have just made the argument that she's not dead like you do with Alice.
Well, Alice obviously is not, but they could have killed Jenny in a way that makes it look like she really is, and that would have been harder to argue.
But doesn't Amy Steele now wish she'd done it? Because she was advised not to do it, wasn't she, by her agent?
Yeah. Mm.
And then now she's kind of thinks it would have been actually probably quite a good move for her to do it.
Yeah. Justin, you had an idea at one point where all the final girls gathered together at a mental institution or around a campfire or something, and then they all had to kind of join forces to fight Jason. And I think I'd told you this before, but Nathan and I went to a convention in Atlanta, and someone there had pretty much the exact same idea. So I think someone stole your idea.
How
they were
actually
talking.
Idea, Justin, if you think Alice is dead, how could you do that idea?
Well, I didn't say Alice would be there. They would have her in a jar, but she'd be in
a formaldehyde jar,
like in Futurama.
Well, her ashes would be there, but she'd be really crap at fighting Jason.
Would it not be
throw the ashes on Jason?
So, for you, Justin, if you wrote that movie, would it not be difficult to decide which heroine you wanted to be the ultimate one? Because I like most of the final girls, and it'd kind of be a shame to see them get killed off.
Well, what I was going to end with Dana Kimmel making kind of her guppy face, and Jason
she lived.
Watches he can't stop watching her. She's just making his guppy face, and he's and then Amy Steele comes out and chops his head off. That was my ending.
But if it's like H2O, they'll make a sequel where a bunch of ridiculous crap happened, and it was somebody else in Jason's mask.
Well, exactly. It would actually be Corey Feldman. No, Corey Feldman.
Corey Feldman.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that would be the ultimate twist. It's actually Tommy Jarvis.
There was recently rumors that they were going to make another one, and they were going to bring back Corey Feldman and kind of go back to the Tommy Jarvis route.
Well, he wants to do that, doesn't he? He wants to do that.
But I think it's just basically him wanting to do it, and no one's really taking him seriously. But I would watch it. I think it'd be interesting.
I'd watch it.
As long as he gets rid of that little rat tail thing at the front.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
And as long as it brings back his sister.
Trish.
Now, he is involved, to my knowledge anyway. I know Corey Feldman is involved with the Crystal Lake documentary that's coming out. I think he's isn't he like the narrator or something?
Yeah, I think so.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to that. If it's half as good as the Elm Street documentary they did, I am sold.
Oh, definitely. Meep, you had some other bits, didn't you?
Oh, I have one final bit of trivia. Has anyone ever seen the TV movie from 1981 called Midnight Offerings?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
That movie has 3 slasher final girls in it. Melissa Sue Anderson, Mary Beth McDonough, and Dana Kimmel. It's a fun movie about teenage witchery, and it pits Melissa Sue Anderson versus Mary Beth McDonough as rivals, and Dana Kimmel somewhere in there. And it's a fun movie. I recommend a watch.
I bought that on VHS, but it didn't have the right movie inside, so I've never actually seen it. So I've always been curious.
What was on it instead?
Well, no, it was a completely different tape. It was something, like something really rubbish, like Toya Live or something.
I hate you.
I don't care.
Yeah, I know you don't.
The bully count continues.
Yes, the bully count does continues.
So, thank you, Meep. Was there anything
that's
else?
It.
That's it.
Why do you hate me?
I don't hate you.
You do, obviously.
Boy, I wouldn't put Eric in my mouth. He might explode.
Well, that's true.
Eric's he's just playing for time as he fills his cup up with some more gin.
Yeah.
I thought it was vodka.
It's white wine today.
Because
red wine.
I was talking about how Eric is slimming down and he's on a regimen of chunky Kit Kats and vodka.
Yeah.
Does anyone else? I know this probably won't apply to Nathan and Joseph because you don't really drink, but anyone else who drinks red wine, do you get black lips sometimes, like black lip liner?
I'm not a fan of red wine because I don't like room temperature drinks.
Oh.
I like refrigerated drinks is what I like.
Okay.
So you drink your beer cold?
I don't drink beer. I don't like beer.
Oh.
Because
I know a lot.
Do you, Eric?
I don't like beer either. I'm with Eric on this one.
Yay, go Meep.
That's the only thing I drink, and I don't really drink, so.
I like
wine
vodka
is
martini.
okay if it's cold. I like cold wine, but I can't drink warm wine. It tastes funny.
But you are drinking red wine, Eric.
White.
Oh, white. Okay.
Red wine.
Ooh.
Okay. Well, let's get back to Friday 13th Part 3 trivia. Anyone else got anything? Nathan, have you got anything for us?
No.
No. Okay.
That's just patented no. Do you have anything, Justin?
I've got some bits. Do you want me to rattle through a few? I was trying to find stuff that people wouldn't. It's not generally known, but it's very difficult to find stuff. But I did find a few things on Variety about the background of the film, which was Martin J. Sadoff, who you interviewed, Eric, didn't you?
I did.
Was it Graduation Day?
Yeah, he was the editor on Graduation Day. Yeah,
and he was the man behind the 3D process for Part 3, wasn't he? The Friday 13th Part 3, and. He was talking about. I was reading actually the David Grove book, Making Friday 13th, which is pretty good as well. It's a good overview of the making of the film, all the films actually. And he was talking about the 3D process and saying, why the reasons why the 3D boom was quite short-lived, because it was really big, wasn't it, for a year and a half, 2 years, and then it just vanished. But apparently, Paramount was sued for $25 million. By a rival 3D company for, I'm not quite sure what it was for, but it was something to do with the process they used in the film and whether or not they owned it and stuff. And they were sued for $25 million, which back in 1982 was pretty big. I mean, it's only $9 million short of the final gross for the film. I don't know what happened to that, but one of the things that I think Martin J. Sadoff says is that the studios lost interest because it was too much of a pain to do 3D films, and there were people suing each other and saying they own processes and all sorts of things like that. So that was a little bit the background. One of the things that we talked about briefly was the endings to the film. There were 3 ending shots. There was the one we see with Mrs. Voorhees. Oops, is that Eric gone out? Eric.
That was my door, yes.
Yes, creeping away.
Yes.
So the ending that has Dana Kimmel being, sort of attacked by Mrs. Voorhees, who obviously had an elastoplast on the neck and the head had, it all healed nicely. But the other two ones, which Erik talks to Larry Zerner about, was the scene where Jason chops her head off. But the other ending, which it says in Making Friday 13th that was filmed, was the one where Jason's stomach gets cut open, or his guts fall out in 3D. And they talk about it as if it was shot and really it was set up and it was all done meticulously and it looked really, really good. But they were worried about the those various reasons why those ones weren't used. One, I think the decapitation, I was reading there was too much blood and they were worried about it not making it through the ratings board. And certainly I can imagine the disembowelment into the camera would have probably been problematic, wouldn't it, for the MPAA, I would have thought at that time. But again, it doesn't explain why we've never seen any of these films. Obviously, stills have emerged of the Dana Kimmel decapitation, but not of the Jason disembowelment. And so there is still quite a few kind of holy grail out there. And I don't know, certainly, because it's slightly not awkward, but we haven't heard, Joseph hasn't interviewed the guys behind Crystal Lake Memories yet, so we don't know if they've answered the question. But one of the questions was whether or not they would actually, if there was any more in the vaults for part 2 and 3, because when they came on board with the latter sequels, they did manage to get lots of stuff out of the vaults, but they weren't around because certainly for the part 3, the DVD I've got, which is I think the most recent one, has only got a trailer on it for part 3.
All right, I can't remember about the DVD, but the Blu-ray has a couple of featurettes on it. Nothing too earth-shattering, but it has an interview with Larry Zerner and Martin J. Sadoff, and I think Catherine Parks is in there, and the costume designer Sandy Love is also on it. But it only runs about 15 minutes. So.
Right. Okay. The other just very quick little bits was. In the scene when they were smoking pot and they had to eat all the pot, it was actually herbal cigarettes, and they had to eat oregano. I think it was Larry Zerner was saying. I don't think he says in your interview, does he? But I think he says in Making Friday 13th,
yeah,
which said it was
on the audio commentary on the Crystal Lake to Manhattan box set. He says, oregano, as we would call it, or oregano, as Meep and Joseph and Nathan would call it.
And the film Paramount really, really pushed out pushed out the boat to publicise it. They spent $3 million on publicity, and it opened really well abroad as well. It was a big success in Australia and in lots of territories, and Paramount apparently really went all out to publicise it around the world, and obviously to great effect, because it actually dwarfed. It didn't make as much money as the first film, but I think it made about $10 million more than the second film. So it kind of it kind of did the the opposite of the usual thing of sequels making less money. The Friday 13th movies actually started going up, didn't they, for a while, and making more money than the last one. It opened at number 1, ahead of E.T. and Best Little Whorehouse in Texas. So it was quite a big deal for a couple of weeks, as Larry Zerner says. I think that's pretty much everything I've got, to be honest.
You forgot the one thing that I forgot it, because I always find it amusing on your site. I don't remember for which film, but you talked about how Dana Kimmel was cast in Friday the 13th Part 3 because the producers saw her performance in Sweet 16 and loved it, and you accentuated the word loved.
Well, that's, just coming back to Dana, it's is that whole thing about her, because she was a Mormon, wasn't she? She probably still is. And she did give an interview with Fangoria where she was quite, saying, I felt funny all the time I was making that film, and I made them cut out all the worst bits of the violence and sex and stuff like that. But you've met her, haven't you? And you said she's really sweet, and she has been to...
she certainly, when we met her, she had a real love for, her fans, and, she talked about, she liked doing the film. So I don't know what kind of I don't know whom is correct here. I don't know who to believe.
It might be a bit of both, mightn't it? Because I think people...
She might have changed her mind, later in life. Because that's John Shepard in Part 5 did the same thing when he was cast as Tommy. You know, for a while there, he kind of denounced it, but then when they interviewed him, he's like, I had a great time. I have no problem with the film or anything. So I guess these people, maybe at one point they didn't like these movies, and then they just changed their mind. Of course, they might have changed their mind when they realized, how much money they can get from going to conventions or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah, well, in Crystal Lake Memories, the book, she says that she has little recollection of doing that Fangoria interview. So, she completely renounces what was apparently said about her in that interview about her making changes. I think she agrees that the only change she asked for was that she didn't want there to be a sexual relationship between Rick and Chris implied in the script. But that was all. She didn't object to any of the violence.
But there is even in the finished thing, there is definitely implied, isn't it, that they've been, making the beast with two backs the summer before.
He's been sticking her penis into her vagina.
Is that what happens?
Yes, that is what happens.
You're like a rock, Eric.
Yep.
Not subtle.
You've been looking at Wikipedia, haven't you?
I am, yeah.
Yes. So, have you got anything else, Erik?
Yeah, I'll just say that the film opened on August the 13th, 1982 in the States, which makes it 31 years old now, not 30 as I stated at the start of the Larry Zerner interview.
Was that on a Wednesday?
That was on a Friday.
Oh, a Tuesday.
It did open on a Friday in September in 1983, believe it or not, in Kilkenny, which is the city I grew up in remote Ireland. So it was 13 months later, ironically, that we got it in my hometown when I was growing up. Not that I went to see it because I wasn't interested in horror at the time. All my focus was on Kajagoogoo, I think, at that stage. Anyway, as Justin said, it went on to gross $36 million, which is far more than Part 2 made. And it was on a budget of, well, I've heard $4 million as a budget, but some sources say $2.5 million. Either way, it made quite a profit. There's two novelizations of the film available. One was done by Michael Avallone, and he wrote the very first novelization of a Friday film, and that was the Part 3, based on the Part 3 screenplay before the film was made, and that was published in 1982. So it includes the alternate ending, but it's slightly different to the alternate endings you were mentioning, Justin. In the version, apparently, in Michael Avallone's book, which I haven't read, what happens is that instead of Chris sticking the axe in Jason's head, what she does is decapitates him completely with a sickle. And then she has this dream sequence where the police arrive at the scene. They can't find any evidence of the crime, of the Jason rampage that has happened. But that's very polite.
That was very rude.
That's really polite.
Mm-hmm.
What happens anyway is that Chris dreams that
it's an accident. I'm sorry.
The police do not believe her that Jason has been on a rampage. So she dreams she goes to the barn, finds all of her friends dead under some haystacks. She runs back to the barn to try and tell the police that, hey, I found all my dead friends. And that's where she's decapitated by Jason in the dream sequence, but it is all a dream. There's a second novelization of the film in 1988 done by Simon Hawke, and it sticks more closely to the film. And he also did novelizations of parts 1 and 2 and 6 at the same time. So, it's unusual for a film of this ilk to have two novelizations. I believe you have one of them, Justin, don't you?
I do, yes.
Which one is it you have? Simon Hawke from 1988 or Michael Avallone from 1982?
Well, if you talk amongst yourselves, I'll go and get it out.
Okay. Well, the film received an uncut theatrical release in the UK and in Ireland, I'm assuming, back in 1982. But when it came time to release the film on VHS in 1987, the film was cut by 4 seconds, and the cuts that were made were a brief moment where Vera is getting her spear to the eye, the shot of Andy's dismembered torso in the rafters was completely removed, and a brief shot of Debbie getting the machete through her chest. All those cuts were removed, amounting to about 4 seconds. So the VHS that I saw as a youngster, I was young once.
Do you like a cut or uncut?
I like uncut.
The version.
I like uncut, I have to say. Anyway, let's just skim over that. By the time the film came to be released on DVD in the late 90s, all cuts were removed, so we got to see the full version then. Channel 4, which is a UK TV station, had a 3D season in 2009 where they gave out free 3D glasses in supermarkets and in press and that stuff. They showed Friday the 13th Part 3, and I think this was just before it was released on DVD in anaglyph format as well. Now, it wasn't spectacular, but it looked quite decent to what I could see. There was no way I could tape it, unfortunately, off the television to keep it. But they also showed Flesh Frankenstein, the Andy Warhol film, which I remember being quite good in 3D. But again, there was no way I could record it off the television to keep. So I can't say if it was good or not. But from what I remember of Friday the 13th, it wasn't that much different to the DVD and Blu-ray that was released in 2009. I think somebody has mentioned Stan Winston originally did the makeup for Jason. They filmed some scenes with that makeup, but then realized that they wanted to change it. And the alternate ending where Jason decapitates Chris featured Stan Winston's original makeup effects for Jason. And they felt it wasn't creepy enough. And if you've seen the stills from the film, I think it is pretty darn good, in my opinion. So I don't know why they decided to change it. But anyway, they decided to scrap the makeup and redo it. But unfortunately, Stan Winston was unavailable at that stage, so Doug White was brought in, and the only criteria he was asked was to match the back of the head of Stan Winston's makeup, so it had to be bald, basically. But he was given freelance to do what he wanted with the front of Jason's head, so that's why the alternate version was scrapped. The alternate ending was scrapped, and why we're given this new ending. And he was told to ignore Carl Fullerton's design in Part 2. Is all I know.
I wonder why they wanted to ignore that.
I think they didn't like the long hair aspect of Jason in Part 2 was the problem. They wanted him bald like he was in Part 1. Also, the booze that the late Steve Susskind, drinks whilst he's doing his number 2 in Part 3, ironically, that was iced tea as opposed to Jack Daniels, I'm afraid to say, Justin.
Oh, what a disappointment.
Yes, I know.
There goes the neighborhood.
Yeah.
I've got the book in front of me now, actually. It's the Michael Avallone one. And it's got some really good pictures. It's I remember this. People are having this at school. This book, and it's got kind of black and white images in the middle. And there's one actually of a meat cleaver. I suppose it's the one that kills Harold, which you don't really see. And also, there's some images here that I've not really seen. There's one of Derek and Chris embracing, and various images that I haven't really seen.
Being the original name of Chris in the screenplay.
Oh yes, of course it would be. Yeah. So yeah. Chris and
well, they say they changed it to Rick because it's easier to scream one syllable than two.
Yeah. But yeah, just reading it kind of ends with the very last line. It says, "Only Chris knew, and nobody was listening to her." And then it's got a little big chopper at the end.
It's got what?
Well, like a chopper, like a hatchet.
Oh.
What do you think I meant?
Chopper, that's funny.
But I have to read this because when I read the final exam novelisation of that was quite good fun. So I might have to. I'll dip into this. I've been after this for ages, so they're quite difficult to get hold of now, aren't they?
Yeah.
So, is that you? Is that you finished?
That's Erik? Me finished, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
Behind the scenes, anyway.
Have we got anything else we want to say about Friday 13th Part 3? We've got a couple of voicemails coming up, but...
Can I ask a loaded question to each of you that's not really, but sort of Friday the 13th related? Okay, great. If you had to, and I'm talking if I had a machete to your, let's say, shoulder, if you had to make love with another member of the podcast, who would you choose?
Oh,
I think I'd choose Justin because he probably wouldn't remember it in the morning because he'd be drunk, and then we wouldn't have to talk about it.
Hey!
Wow, you answered that really quickly.
Yeah.
I did.
Well, I would not make love with Erik.
Hey!
You're just too hairy. I'm sorry.
Well, I'd make love to you because you're hairy.
I am hairy.
I would have a foursome.
Very diplomatic.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. What about you, Nathan? Who would you make love with?
I echo what Justin says.
All four? Wow.
Yeah.
Well, we pretty much make love all the time on this show. Metaphorical love.
Yeah.
We could do like I don't know if you have foursome, you could have like spit roast and.
How about you three, Nathan, Erik, and Justin do it, and I'll just sit in the corner and like watch.
Masturbate.
Yeah. I don't want to get involved.
He's a watcher.
Yes.
I'm a voyeur.
Voyeur, yeah.
Well, Meep, we have to ask you, who would you do in the podcast?
Let's see, who haven't I had already?
It
would have to be a
haven't had
five-some.
already? What, you hinting you've had some of us already?
A five-some.
Okay, right. So
It could get tricky. It'd be like Naked Twister or something. Right foot green.
there'd be lots of room for matron sound clips, I'm sure. So, well, thank you, Michael,
God,
for
now I'm going to be
lowering the tone.
It's going to be
of the
stuck in my
podcast.
head all day.
What's going to be stuck in your head?
This mental image of all five of us on a bed or
All right.
something.
Yeah.
Like in Howling 2.
Yeah.
Well, I think on that bombshell, maybe we should go to some sort of ways for people to contact the show.
Sure.
So here is the ways to let us know what you thought of the show and which podcast member you would sleep with.
Be sure to search for and like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at THC_podcast. Our voicemail is 858-233-9281. And you can email us directly at the.hysteria.continues@gmail.com.
And here is the first of the call-ins.
Hi, y'all. My name is Tracy, and I love to do aerobics. I've got to go out and do my aerobics now in a second, actually, so I'll be out of your way in a second. And after that, I'm going to take a shower. I want to say I love Toya, but I don't like Susie. As hot up as that, I'd never get. Bye, y'all.
Wow, that was old.
That was a blast from the past. I think I put that in there by mistake. I wonder, that voice sounds familiar, though.
Mm-hmm.
Any idea, Erik, who that could be?
No idea. Who could it be?
Inga.
I don't know. I hope she calls back. She's got a very sexy voice.
I was just wondering if the person behind the podcast is a bit incompetent.
You take that back.
As hard up as that, I'll never get.
Take it to human resources.
Yeah.
Well, here's a proper voicemail.
Hello, listeners. This is David C. Millay, also known as BTK on the TBC boards. In honor of the Friday the 13th Part 3 podcast, I've managed to get an interview with the elusive star, Dana Kimmel. Who the fuck cares? Now, Dana, first of all, I want to thank you for taking the time to do this interview. I know you are not a very big fan of Friday the 13th or R-rated movies in general, so it shows great professionalism and a great deal on your character for you to join us today. So before I begin asking questions, do you have anything you would like to say? You too. That's great. All right, now first question. How was working on the film? Do you have any behind-the-scenes stories you would like to tell us? Really? So is that to say that you didn't have a fun time while shooting the movie? Oh, I see you have some of your friends here. Oh, I agree. That's great. Yeah. Now, sadly, the great Richard Brooker is no longer with us. Do you have any fond memories of working with this great man that you would like to share with us? Yeah, true. A legend in his own right. Now, I know this podcast is going to be long and you're busy doing jack shit with your career, so we'll just end the interview here. But I was wondering, before we go, is there anything you want to tell your loyal fans? Oh, how festive in September. Well, thanks, Dana, for coming by and answering some questions. This has been BTK with an exclusive bullshit interview. Back to you asshats on Skype.
Well, thank you, BTK.
As a proper Dana lover, I am totally aghast.
Are you aghast?
He's a card, that BTK.
We are speechless. That kind of puts Joseph's Jamie Lee Curtis quips in some kind of
I'm no longer
context.
I'm no longer the worst case here.
No.
Well, that's hopefully poor Dana or Dana.
Fuck it, who cares?
Yeah, isn't listening. But no, thank you for phoning in, BTK, and who incidentally, if you love Dana Kimmel, you can track him down at his comic shop.
Yeah, it's Wapakoneta, Ohio. Just search for the
What's the address? I might have to visit this guy with my machete.
Well, I imagine Dana Kimmel or Kimmel is probably heading over there now. So BTK, if you're listening to this, lock your doors, shut your windows.
Maybe he can hire her to work the register.
Yes, that's possibly true. But before we slander any more Final Girls or anyone else, we also have another voicemail. It's a rare treat for us to get 2 voicemails. So here's the second one.
Hey guys, gentlemen, bastards. It's Brett again calling. I'm calling from the gym. My gym's going to close. Very sad. Closing on October 11th. This gym has a lot of sentimental value for me. Me and my buddy work out here almost every day. It's going away. We'll have to find a new place to work out. But I digress. I enjoyed your most recent show, even though you haven't done one that I've heard in a long time. Or I should say seen. You haven't done a movie that I've watched. When are you going to do Friday the 13th 3? Just get on it. Do it next. It's the best one. You get to do an interview, and you all have a lovely time. Question. I finally got around to watching Sleepaway Camp 2, and I thought it was just horrendous, okay? Now here's the deal. I won with my buddies. I think 1 is great. And then we eventually watched Sleepaway Camp Return 4, okay? Thought it was fine. Perfectly lovely. But people talk about it like the worst movie ever made. So then I finally get around to watching 2, and I was going to watch 3. And I'm like, okay, these are supposed to be better than 4. I thought it was horrible. What could you possibly like about 2?
Because they're good.
I thought 4 was clearly better than 2.
Oh my God, no, it's not.
Off when I realized how horrible it would be, just like 2. They sucked. How could you make a sequel to Sleepaway Camp 1 that was that bad? Awful. They were like shot on video or something, and the acting was just horrible, and there wasn't any gore, and it was trying to be funny on purpose, but it failed miserably. It wasn't funny at all. The first movie was so special and unique and like accidentally brilliant. That was just horrendous. I couldn't believe how bad it was. So please, I'm trying to be genuine. Please explain how you can talk with such horror about number 4. I thought it's abomination, and then claim 2 or 3 are somehow better. Well, at least 4 felt like a sequel to 1. 2 and 3 just felt like weird, whatever, ripoff with Bruce Springsteen's sister or daughter, or whatever the hell she is, the lady that has no career. But aside from that, I'm still enjoying your shows, and I love you all. All right, I'll call you again. Bye bye.
Well, thank you, Brett. But I think I better hand you over to Nathan for a good spanking.
Oh God, my head hurts. Like, I cannot imagine. I mean, Brett, now is your only defense for Part 4 is that it felt like a direct sequel to Part 1? I mean, so what? I could go out and film a bunch of chimpanzees and say that one of them is Angela, and they're back at Camp Arawak. Does that make it a better sequel? No.
Wow. Nathan's bullying now.
Yeah.
I'm not bullying. I'm defending. I didn't insult him at all. I'm just saying that I disagree, and I'm passionate about what I love. And I happen to think 2 and 3 are the best movies in that series.
Bully. No, actually, I agree. How anyone could possibly like Part 4 more than 2 and 3. And even I don't think 2 and 3 are anything special.
I like 2 and 3, but yeah, Part 4 was really, really rough. Yeah. We'll never watch it again, ever.
Eric, have you watched Part 4 yet?
I still haven't watched it, no. Apparently there's a character in it who's supposed to be very similar to me.
Yes, Alan.
Yes, but I still haven't watched it.
No, actually, I won't even bully you that much, Eric. No one is like Alan, and if there's anyone on Earth like Alan, I hope they die.
Yeah, Justin.
Oh, God.
What?
Do you have any idea how long this podcast is going to be?
4 hours.
Well, it's going to be nudging
Longer than my winkle?
No, it's longer than 6 centimeters. We're already over 3 hours, probably more than that actually now, if you factor in all of the interviews. So, I think we should think about closing up before Erik becomes any more abusive, and before Nathan has an aneurysm, and before Michael.
And you did that the day before my birthday too. How could you insult me that way?
Happy birthday, Nathan! Didn't realize.
Actually, September 14th is my birthday, so only the listeners.
Okay.
Today's my cousin's birthday, so happy birthday. Well, not the 13th, but the 1st.
Okay. Well.
And his name is Nathan as well.
It's a bit like a cheerleader camp, isn't it? Connections to.
Yes.
Did you know that Friday the 13th Part 3 has a connection to cheerleader camp?
Oh God!
Oh God! Here we go.
I have it right here. It says, "Please send to Justin," and he'll mail it to him, and he can read it.
Mm-hmm. Right. I'm going to say.
No, wait a minute, Justin. You're next. So what's the next pick going to be for the podcast?
Well, we are going to be doing "He Knows You're Alone."
Yay!
He does know it too.
Yes, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we may have an interview or two for that one.
Tom Hanks.
Sorry?
Tom Hanks.
Tom Hanks. Yes, Tom Hanks is going to be in the studio with us, or
wow.
the bedroom, or
because we're all in a studio together.
The Skype studio,
or in Eric's case, the fridge.
What?
What? I just saying you probably had got a little booth set up surrounded by chunky Kit Kats.
I'm 2 degrees away from Tom Hanks. I can surely get him.
How many degrees?
One of the administrators on my page, my Cinema to Me page, is actually his stand-in on movies.
Wow!
And he has very, very kind things to say about him. So I think
would he come on the show? Do you think?
Very, very happy to come on and talk about his slasher movie past, I'm sure.
Now, Tom Hanks does a lot of video, video blogging, so I have this feeling that he actually would probably do something like that if someone actually asked him. But I think people would be too afraid to ask him because he'd turn you down. But I don't know. Something tells me he would do something like that because he likes his fans.
Well, watch this space. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
So I'm sure he'll take a break from doing the new sort of Da Vinci Code style movie to.
He's playing Walt Disney in a movie this year, so I'm sure he wants to follow it up with slasher.
Yes,
slasher stuff.
You never know.
You never know.
Might get him.
Well, watch this space. But also, we have to say thank you very, very much for Michael coming on the show. Where can we see you? What can we see you in? Do you want to tell people?
I will be appearing in Friday the 13th Part 4, hopefully. You could find Cinema de Meep on the interweb, cinemademeep.com, or you could look us up on Facebook. That's where I do most of my bidding, my evil bidding on Facebook. Just do a Cinema de Meep search, and you'll find us there. But I want to say that I'm feel incredibly honored to have been part of this, because I really do love this movie, and I love you guys, and thank you so much for having me, and each of you having me.
Aren't you starting up your own podcast soon as well?
Yeah, I'm in the process of it. I'm trying to figure out the logistics of it, and it's a little hard with a baby, and there's quite a few things going on right now. But I will have one eventually, and it will be about movies that I like a lot, and some of you guys may appreciate some of that.
Excellent. Yes, well, we should look forward to that. And anything else we want to say, guys? Erik, do you want to take us out? What we're gonna play out with?
Well, obviously we have to play out with the disco theme from Friday the 13th, Part 3.
Yes.
And my final words are, is this your rub?
Or...
Is this your rubber?
Yeah, she says it better than I can.
Yes, and maybe just last...
Ew.
Again.
Where's this coming from?
What I should have done now thinking about it for...
I didn't sign up for this.
for Meets number 2. I should have done that with a little meow at the end of it, shouldn't I? But, yes. Well, we're going to play out with the disco theme for Friday the 13th Part 3. So thanks for listening to this rather epic show. And thanks again for Meet for coming on. And we will be back with He Knows You're Alone in probably a couple of weeks. We'll be back on schedule, won't we?
Yep.
Sounds about right.
Because that's what happens when you're pregnant.
I've got a couple of other...
We don't accept no food stamps.
Yes.
We certainly don't.
This feels good.
Yep, that's Sex with Justin.
Absolutely, yes. So, thanks for listening, and I'll catch you on the flip side. So, see you later. Say goodbye, guys.
Catch you on the flip side? Are you 19 or something?
Yeah.
Later.
Not stoned like you.